Good evening, everybody. Welcome to round 7 of the 2025 ASR Supercars Championship. It's half time, and now the second half begins for the year. And it's a bit of a change in format yet again. We've had the triple race format, we've had the dual race format, we've had the short and long format. We're getting into the single race formats now. There's 3 of them in the next 5 rounds at Sandown and Bathurst to come. But tonight, it's a little bit of a shorter single race night. It's a 180 kilometre single race blast around the streets of Townsville a week after the real life supercars were here just 7 days ago. And they did 3 races back then. We're going to do just the one. It returns to a format that from, I think it was 2019, Benjamin Roddy Rhodes, if that is correct, was the last time we did one of those. I think actually was the first time that Townsville actually debuted on the calendar that it was a single race format. So going back in time a little bit here, I think we are this round.
Yeah, we're digging right into the back of my memory banks, but yeah, that does sound about right. But good evening to everyone watching along at home, or good morning, or good afternoon, or whatever it is for you. And yeah, we've had a variety of formats at Townsville. It kind of very much is the Adelaide and Street Circuit of the North as a way of looking at it. Granted, Adelaide's been traditionally it's got one layout, but Adelaide's held a variety of things to do. It's had enduros, it's had sprint races. So yeah, a bit of a variety, but given the very sprint-heavy end of the season that we've got coming up, going to the exceptions in a couple of rounds, but a lot of sprints coming up. It kind of a nice little break, nice little change of pace to run a big long race today, and also it gives us a good chance to see how these cars behave on purely the hard tyre.
Yeah, that's right. If you look at the calendar as it sits now, like tonight's for single race night, we've got some dual race format coming up at round 8, single race format for round 9, which is Sandown. We've got sprint format at the Bend. The Bathurst, which is a 300k race, and then a dual race format in the final round of the season, round 12 on November 7 at Adelaide. A bit of an early finish to the season, all things considered as well. So that's a bit of a difference in the calendar this year. But yes, it's been a bit of it's an interesting time of the year because it is quite a sprint-heavy focus. That the last 2 of the last 3 rounds involve multiple race formats. So this is kind of a bit of it gets people's heads, I think, Rhodey, around the notion of pit stop strategy and undercuts and overcuts, and also it elevates your concentration, I think, as well. It's very easy to put your foot down and go, but sometimes when you need to play the game and you need to play the pit stop strategy game, or you need to play a bit of a fuel saving game to meet that number. You've got to get your brain engaged a little bit sometimes to be able to pull those feats off.
Yeah, within reason, and we've seen this IRL, but within reason, the longer you push a race out, the more you start to have different strategies you can throw in there. In practice, there is really only one way to get around a track the fastest, assuming green conditions the way through. You throw a safety car in and everything goes out the window, and we definitely experienced that last week with Dev Series, but it definitely is going to throw some options up, even though the tyres set is 1. I know plenty of guys will get to the end of this with 10 laps to go. Maybe the safety car comes out and they go, damn, I wish I was on soft tyres right about now. But yeah, from managing fuel, managing tyres, there'll be some good options. But even then, it's not even like a purely managing based race. If you want to have a race where you go out and you blaze around all 180 Ks, obviously can give you the lap count, but I can't remember off the top of my head, but 180 Ks, you can. It might be an extra pit stop somewhere in there, but you know what? It's a straight circuit. There might be a safety car that falls right in where you need to be, and what turns into a 2-stop race becomes an effectively 1-stop race, and all of a sudden the people on the optimum strategy are the ones that are in trouble.
Yeah, that's right. So you saw on the development series round 7 days ago, in fact, that exact situation happened. You had the early safety car, you had all sorts of things happening, and it really just sort of threw the balls up in the air, didn't it? It made it really interesting. The early safety car, a couple of people took the gamble. There was a few people with damage. Safety car just before halfway, but not quite at the point where you could safely pit and make it home. So there were people that stayed out. There were people that rolled the dice. And then, of course, there was the late safety car. And in one case, the whole one whole field or one whole class, except for one car, was trapped a lap down in all of that. So, you've got to strategize your way around some of these things, don't you? You've got to always sort of be on top of it. You've got split-second decisions to make in certain situations like you just alluded to.
You do, yeah. So it'll be interesting how this goes for some of the guys. I know some of the guys here have got access to, or slash have people, there are people around who will play spotters for them. Well, spotters, less spotters, really more strategic option. And there are plenty of guys who have got enough, we'll call it mental fortitude, to be able to work their way through their own racing and then actually plan their own racing at the same time. And I know I've struggled with that at times. There are also a couple of guys here that can do all that and plan the rest, or at least provide some information for the rest of their teammates around them. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because absolutely this is a race where I haven't done enough testing to know, but this absolutely could be a sort of a race where the ideal strategy, with nothing else playing in, is to just low brain it and just go out there and drive until the tires run out, or drive until the fuel runs out, and then get some more. But you know, it like that again, that only works if the race is clean the whole way through, and it's a straight circuit, and we've generally, I think, averaged at least one safety car at Townsville in the past, outside of maybe in the really, really short races. But even then, I think people have tried. You've got to allow for that somewhere in your planning, and it takes a bit of whatever, really, to be able to adapt on the fly to make that work, because that throws your strategy out the window, and to win you need to be able to adapt to that, and it can be a challenging thing to do it sometimes.
Yeah, certainly can be. Well, as you said, it is a bit of a challenge, this place. Let's actually have a look at it, because we've been coming here, I'm pretty sure, since 2019 was the first time, if memory serves me correctly, that we were here. It's a fair drive north of Brisbane, Townsville. It's they call it the capital city of North Queensland, effectively, and in the shadows of the hill, there is the nearly 3 kilometre long Townsville Street Circuit. It's got a little bit of parkland area in a similar way to what the Adelaide Street Circuit does, particularly in the final sector, but otherwise it is 100% made up of public roads and infrastructure. So first sector is all about the speed. You've really got just the 2 turns there to take you up to turn 3. And then, turn 3 starts to get a little bit more technical. It's a bit narrow with the sweeping lefts and rights. And then the real fun starts when you get into the green sector there. Sector 3, you've got, high curbs, you've got tyre walls, you've got concrete, you've got the really difficult section, Rady. We always struggle with this at turn 10, which is up and over the railway line, and can quite unsettle the cars rather badly if you get that line wrong. And there's a concrete wall just waiting for you on the outside if you do get it wrong.
It's a really good little practice one. It sort of almost follows the American corner numbering strategy, because turn 1, technically a corner, not really one when you're racing. Turn 4, even less. If you really wanted to, you could really number 3 through 5 as 3 through 6. There's a few kinks in there that really should be corner counted. But it's a real good track, real challenge. It's probably just thinking through, it's probably the most elevation we've got on a straight circuit in Australia, even if most of that elevation is just in the exit of 3 and the run up and over through turn 10. But it provides a real good challenge, this track. High speed and low speed chicanes, high speed and low speed cornering. It's not sort of a traditional big wide swinging corner like the likes of, say, a Phillip Island or the Bend. But even then, it gets a good challenge to it. The other thing as well is the whole track, it really is kind of wide enough to go 2 wide, but at the same time, half the racing line here really relies on going 1 wide. So we saw this plenty in Dev Series. We've seen this in the past as well. Is you can be slower than the cars in front of you, but if they're battling, you're going to catch them pretty quickly, because you've really got to knock a lot of speed off to make it through some of these corners when you're 2 wide with someone. And the person you're racing with probably isn't too inclined to give you that room, because if they do, they'll lose you as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the biggest illustration of that is turn number 1, which is a very high-speed approach coming off the start-finish line. And getting through there on lap 1 is going to be a challenge. You're right, we saw it in the development series. You've got to give each other as much room as possible. Even if you give each other a little bit too much room at turn number 1, it has dire consequences, as I found out, getting into the outside wall and then someone else getting into my rear quarter, and then it becomes a bit of a problem. But then there are other parts of the circuit where you do have to fall into line very, very quickly before you get to that next corner, because there really is only one line through those corners, especially up the back section, going into the chicanes. You can make a passing move into the chicanes, but you've got to know when to when to bail out effectively if you're not going to make that move. If the move's not on, you've got to fall into line because you'll be, really hung out to dry if you don't get back into line in a timely fashion. Well, speaking of timely fashion, we're going to keep the night moving because we do not only have qualifying coming up in about 60 seconds time or so, but we actually have a top 10 shootout tonight as well. So I think it might be the first one of these for the year potentially, if memory serves me correctly. So getting into that spirit of things what go along with single night rounds. So here we go, qualifying not too far away. Good to see a few latecomers jumping in as well. We're getting a little bit worried for a moment because we thought that we might be a bit short on the old resourcing front tonight, with a few drivers still struggling just to adapt to the winter. They all want to be rugged up in front of the fire, in front of the telly, or whatever it is that you want to be rugged up in front of these days. But they all of a sudden went, oh shit, and it's time to go racing, and a few of them haven't turned a lap. Well, they're about to do it now as they all start to leave the lane. So 20 cars on deck for tonight, which means we're going to lose 10 of them on the other side of this 10-minute session, and then the other 10 will go again in a single lap dash.
Absolutely. So as per usual, the head of the queue is a Sierra Anderson car. Tonight it's going to be Daniel Cox, although I say that and he's given up the head of the queue immediately to Will Devonish, who a little bit slower than I expected to see him, at least in practice. Although to be fair, I think he was one of the guys who was practicing race pace over the guys in front of him, maybe pushing into qualifying pace. But even then, I think he was still about 6/10 or so removed off the back of Noah Taro, so maybe either the hard tyres not working his way tonight, or just the track car combo. But we're going to see how he goes. Coxie's getting over him, and then a couple of cars out back as well. We're interested to see, for those guys who haven't done too much practice what we've seen, so the likes of Steele Allison, Phil Boak, and there was one other, how they get along as well.
Yeah, that's right, and the bit that I'm sort of looking at here as well, there's only one car currently not out on the circuit, and that's Brandon Dostal. He's decided to set up in the pits for the moment. There's a big old long train of cars now sort of just queuing up, trying to get themselves out of, or get themselves in position here. Look at this, there's a big log jam. They're all waiting for themselves and each other. They all want to get a little bit of a tow, but they don't want to be ultra close to the drivers in front of them, like what Aidan Williams is doing here, right up the back of Kurt Stenberg. You probably don't want to be that close to the car in front, because if you do make a mistake, you've now limited your bailout room. You sort of want to be maybe about the distance that Steve Warwick is back from Aidan Williams, because if you can just pick up that little bit of a distant tow, it gives you that carrot to chase, but it also gives you a bit of room to bail out if something goes wrong.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It depends on, I suppose, and where you're at. Aidan Williams is another one, actually, and good to see Aidan back tonight, because I haven't seen him since the first round of the season. But he's another one, I suppose, especially with his lack of relative recent experience. He's probably in a good position where Stenberg, by all accounts, will pull away from him pretty handily. But Stenberg is going to have a pretty good chance of having good lines to follow. So Williams' best shot is to sit there behind him. Expect that he's going to be dropped by Stenberg, but it'll be the surefire way to give him a rough idea of where the braking points, where the turning points, where the apex points are, to get a decent lap around here. And he'll get a little bit of a tow down the straights as well, which he can use to cover up any of his slightly poor runs, like he's run a little bit wide there through the hairpin.
Yeah,
so it's a good position to be in at sort of pace that he's running at.
So first times are all starting to come in. Yes, you're right. If we go back to where Stenberg and Williams are, that he did lose a little bit of ground, but he's still being towed along, making up for some of those poor performances. Stenberg drops into P3, which is behind Corey McFarlane. It's actually half a second behind Corey McFarlane, and then Devonish just a tenth quicker than McFarlane at the moment, but it is the early going. Still no appearance from Brandon Dostal, as nice slide job for that, and sliding out of the way goes the Kingston's Chicken number 1, defending champion, round at turn 2.
It does also show how effective that tow / that education was for Williams, because he was only a 2-3 tenths slower than Stenberg as well, and presumably, I'm not sure he's done too much practice at all, although 5th fastest on a first lap suggests he probably has done a little bit of practice before tonight.
Yeah, probably has done a little bit, but late comer in the door just hasn't, because you've got to get the rhythm going, I think, more importantly. If you've got your confidence, that's not a problem, but if you haven't got, you just got to find the rhythm, but it's when you haven't got the confidence, then you've got to find both. There's a few laps coming in now. Now, just remember, it's on the hard tyre tonight as well, so we're not going to get the super fast flying laps, that are going to be sort of sub 1 minute 12 on these tyres. We might get very close, but, the far possibilities of a soft tyre are not going to be reached tonight. It is the hard tyre round. It's one of very few hard tyre rounds for the year. Now, Tara currently in third place. He's going to try and set another time here. Just ahead of him, Phil Boak, another one of the latecomers in tonight, lock and lock behind. So 2 teammates running line astern here. Tara third, and then you're looking back at Locke, who's the last man inside the 10 at the moment. So he's just gone across the line for another lap. He's actually still keeping the Indigenous livery on the car from last round at Hidden Valley. And at the moment, this man inside the 10 has got Curtis Igmanis and Mitchell Steele-Allison, the next 2 closest challengers to him. He's only got 2 tenths in hand over Steele and a fistful of hundredths over Igmanis. A couple of Queensland natives looking to get themselves into position for a top 10 shootout.
Absolutely. We'll start to see some better times come in now if people are running longer longer sessions in what is longer stints, I suppose, in qualifying sense. But one thing that people have noted, pertinently in Dev Series last week, but also generally people have noted across the years that they don't get up to 10th, they don't get quite up to speed within the first push lap. They kind of have to go for 2 or 3 or be really aggressive on your out lap, but that's not always possible depending on what track you're at. So we're starting to start to see some better times now, I would think, and there's one thing to keep an eye on for the shootout as well as maybe we're going to see some guys be really, really aggressive on their out laps, which we wouldn't normally see because normally you chill with a soft tyre. But the hard tyre, you're going to get probably about 5 or 10% through before you really start to get some good life out of it.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I think you're absolutely spot on with that as well. I remember in the development series race last time out that yes, it took that first lap. It wasn't so much like treating the hard tyre like glass. It was about bringing the tyre in, finding a value that you could happy with, getting the temperature into the tyres, and just building up and not actually trying to push the issue too much. You're probably doing about an 85 to 90% qualifying lap on the first run, and by the time you then got across the line, what you would actually do is square off the last corner. So go a little bit deeper into the corner, go quite wide, cut down very, very late, square the car off, and then try and drive out of the final corner, on the rear tyre quite comfortably. So we probably won't get a good illustration of that, but what we'll try and do is with Daniel Cox coming to the last couple of corners now, we'll show you exactly what we mean. So where he is right now, the natural line goes out to the left and then it sweeps all the way back to the right. So instead of taking the apex here, what you would try and do is go up to that last MHRT sign on the on your right hand side, and then turn very sharply and at a very slow speed, and then try and drive and get maximum traction to both rear tyres. So you're not trying to accelerate through the corner on corner exit. You're trying to maximise the full use of the front straight, get that big run down to turn number 2 as close to being on the rev limiter as possible.
Yeah, essentially just trying to veer the corner and get as apex as possible if you're even technically apexing at that point.
So a little bit of a change in the top of the order at the moment. So Devonish is still in front. He has increased his gap. Luke Newing moves into provisional P2 at the moment. Now, he was quick in the practice session. He was actually about halfway through the 2-hour practice session just before this. He was up the top, and I do mean on the top of the standings for quite a little while, with a mighty impressive time. So he's one to keep an eye out on tonight, I think, Rhodey. He's had a little bit of a horrid run of luck lately, so everyone has there's due for their luck to turn at some point.
They are, yeah. I've just done a look at the timing of people that are improving, and one person that I'm really curious on why their lap went the way it started and why it's gone the way it has now was Ryan Smith, who did set the paper first sector the last time through with a 21.1. Although that has just been bettered by a 21.1 from Will Devonish on his run, trying to get a little bit better.
Smith just across the line too.
Interesting run for Ryan. He's down there in 7th currently, but if he's sitting on sectors to go a little bit quicker, Perhaps maybe for Ryan's point of view, he maybe feels like he's safe in the top 10 and is maybe starting to play around with some options now for a shootout.
Yeah, top 6 I think at the moment are safe. So Noah Tara on a 12.5 all the way up to Will Devonish on a 12.1. They're currently safe. Smith actually just clocks a new purple first sector on this flying lap as well, so maybe he is possibly making a few adjustments to go. We might stay with this one. Smith himself is on a 13 flat, so too Scott Murrell on a 13 flat. I wouldn't be feeling particularly safe if I was those two, because you've got Speck on a 13.1, Foley 13.2, Egmanis 13.3, Locke 13.3, and Cox and Steele Allison and Rutledge on 13.5. So only got to find a couple of tenths here or there. You might find yourself out of the shootout as it sits right now. So Smith round turn number 11 is his middle sector. It was actually a personal best in the middle sector, so this might move him up the order a little bit, or if not, it's at least going to move him a little bit closer to safety with 22 seconds left on the clock, and it moves him plenty closer to safety. It actually finds him half a second, so that's very, very important for him. It actually jumps him up over Noah Turris. So the top 7, I would say, are now 100% safe. It's position 8 with Lachlan Locke on backwards that need to pull the finger out here, because all it takes is and Locke's not going to improve here. He's round at the final turn number 2 there. Here's someone I would expect to maybe try and make a slight improvement. Mitchell Steele Allison through turn number 10 up and over the railway line, currently 14th. His first sector wasn't really on the money. His personal best in the middle sector. He's going to struggle to improve from here. He's got fistfuls of lock all over the place. I don't think he's going to improve at this rate, and he might be on the outside looking in. Murrell now on the brink of exiting. He's in 10th at the moment. No improvement from Steele Allison. So Scott Murrell is still continuing to go here. He knows he's not safe. It's the man behind, so Luke Speck is not going to make any further improvement. Foley's not going to make any further improvement. Cox has pulled the pin. So Murrell, I don't think, needs to go again unless the likes of Callaghan and co are going to be able to pull a lap. But no, Callaghan's actually finished, and Boker's finished as well. So Murrell is going to scrape into the shootout here by, what's that, just over a tenth of a second over Luke Speck. So they couldn't quite make it to SES Shogun Camaros in the 10, but they gave it a mighty good shake.
Yeah, that's a surprise for Speck, actually. He was sitting in the 10 pretty handily in practice, so maybe just wasn't quite able to put the lap together. But what that has mean is Murrell, who's filling in again at a new team for against this, not a new team. He has been here before, but
how many is this now?
In Bailey Hall car. I think it's still only the three teams he's been in. He did fill in for these guys. I think he filled in maybe at Taupo. So he has been at in the Beyond Race. I don't remember what the team is called. But he has been in the Team Vortex cars before. But he makes the 10. As does Lockie Locke, Curtis Egmanis, Noah Tara, Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith actually is a good surprise given that pace, so hopefully there's a little bit more to go. Stenberg in 5th, which is a bit of a surprise given Aidan Williams up in 4th. He actually improved over Stenberg's time. And again, while he might have practiced, we haven't seen him race since round 1, so that he's picked these up pretty well. McFarlane in 3rd with Newing in 2nd, also a really good run from Newing. And Devonish, given his practice pace, I'm surprised to see him starting last in the shootout.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised at that as well. Like, he's sort of been, sort of top 3 or 4 most of the year. But, very rare to see him. I guess when he's on the front row, we tend to know what happens. But by the same token as well, going out last in the shootout, that's going to be a little bit of a surprise, I would say. But we will see what happens. There is a fair old way to go in this one. But the one that I guess I was looking at was to see whether or not Luke Speck was actually able to jump in there, which he unfortunately didn't make. Even Egmanis found himself up into the 1 minute 12s toward the end of that session. So he was down in the 13, so he was at risk. And him jumping up into the 12s actually was the one that put Murrell at risk of going out in the shootout. So if it had been a decent sector somewhere for Luke Speck, he may have been able to continue on and be able to put Murrell out of the 10. So but that's the way that it is. And at the end of the day, actually Devonish got down to a 12.0, so he actually got mighty close to going to a sub-11. If he had to put all these good laps together, he actually would have done an 11.8, which is seems mind-boggling on a hard tyre, Rody.
Yeah, well, that would have put him, if we're giving everyone their best laps, that still puts him near on 310. Oh, actually no, slightly under. But for basic math, we go 3/10 quicker than the second quickest driver, which would have actually been McFarlane. He was sitting on sectors for a 12.1, but only managed to get a 12.3 in the end. Yeah, that's some pretty good pace. And the one thing I suppose, again, it depends on the strategy as to how much that actually matters to you. Because if you're running a one-stop race, you're probably gonna have to be a bit more conservative. If you're running a two-stop, you can maybe look at doing those qualifying times, but again, you need to be in a good fuel situation. So, look, if what that's telling me is if Will's down the back of the 10 with 10 laps to go or something, and gets into a position of getting some fresh tyres on, keep an eye on Will Dervish.
Yeah, well, that'll be quite key here as well. We're not too far away from getting shootout underway. Scott Murray will be the first man out, and he's already lined up and ready to go as soon as the session goes green. So, of course, we have locked in positions 11 through to 20, and an interesting news there as well. Brandon Dostal, the only one not to set a time. So he will start last, but he has, of course, done a little bit of practice, so he knows the drill here as well. So Murrell's time to get in the shootout happened to be a 13.057, so he was the one that was, or him and Lockie Lock were actually the two closest cars to being at risk of going out, so they will be the first two men out, two Ford Mustangs. So if we have a look through the order here, the only two Camaros in the top 10 for this shootout, Luke Newing and Kurt Stenberg, Brody. So remember what's happened times here where the Camaros have been, it's the old adage from the Prodigy, always outnumbered, never outgunned. Remember, I think it was Hamilton, I think it was last year in the Gen 3 era, the Ford Mustangs, it was 9 versus 1, and they all came and tried, and Stenberg still beat them all.
Yeah. So interesting to see how it plays out for that case as well. But people with not that it's concerned in sim racing, but if people were concerned about the BOP, there are some questions there. But it's doing a better job of real life than real life, I'd say, given the correct manufacturer has the advantage. But speaking of the correct manufacturer, we have the first driver for Ford, which is Scott Murray. He's filling in for Bailey Hall, and he's starting his lap now. Certainly is.
He did exactly what we were talking about during the qualifying session. He squared the corner off as much as he possibly could, feed it off, and tried to get as much purchase on the rear tyres as he can down to turn number 1 and onto 2 here. He pick up the apex nicely. A little bit of inside curb, it's not too bad. Sometimes that does help turn the car. You've got to maximise the real estate, stay as close to the left-hand side as possible here. Grab a late turn and then all the way to the wall here. Through that nasty bump. It throws a few people for 6 when you've got to keep control of the car. Now flowing through the left, through the right, just grabbing a little bit of curb. You don't want to grab too much of it. Stay in bounds there on the outside, and now down to this tricky chicane as well. Try and use as much curb again as you can. The curbs are raised enough here, they help turn the car. If you hit them at the right angles and the right speed, it's a beautiful way to get through these corners. No real estate left on the left-hand side, heading up to turn number 10 and down to 11. It's been a clean and tidy lap so far. It hasn't really seemed to have broken traction through many of these corners, so Murrell is applying the throttle technique very, very nicely here. It isn't a Larry lap, it's a good lap. It's going to be a solid one. As he comes to the line here, it's going to be in the 13s. It's a 13.2. That's actually pretty decent. Being only 0.2 of a second off what you've got to get into the shootout is a fine start.
It is, yeah, and to do that, as we mentioned, with trying to get the tyres warmed, and we saw this I did see this from Murrell at the start. They're very aggressive, trying to get some heat in the tyres. He's done a really good job with that.
Yeah, good job preparing the car to get out there, especially considering that the car itself does take a bit of time to get the tyres up to speed. So he has done a pretty decent job there. And as I said, 0.2 away from your time going into the shootout, to qualify for the shootout, is very, very impressive. You'll be happy with that. The next Mustang out, Lockie Lock, car number 237, sits inside the top 10 in the championship. He's been in the top 10 for the last several rounds. So this is one of his best starts to a season in some time since he joined from the development series from his graduation all those years ago. It seems like an eternity nowadays. With the LLD livery on the car this time around, broke a little bit of traction at turn number 2, so that'll just hurt his drive off of turn 2 down to the first marker at 3, and he's already a quarter of a second behind Murrell.
Yeah, so not the best start to the lap there for Locke, although he has still got 2 more sectors to try and bring this back. The car's not looking quite as predictable, but he's nearly put it around there off the curbs at the exit of the fast chicane. Yeah, the car's just looking as compliant, whether it's maybe a lack of tyre warming or whether it's a setup change. But yeah, something about the car just not looking quite as planned as 38 was.
No, definitely not. It looks a little bit too loose there. It almost looked like for a minute from the onboard camera on the roof cam that he was about to go a little bit deep at turn 11, but he managed to gather that one up and keeps going. It's a much better finish to the lap. It was a little bit troublesome at the start. His middle sector was actually on a par compared to Scott Murrell. It was actually pretty close. And his final sector, when he comes across the line, he actually picked up some time. His final sector was actually about a tenth and a half quicker than Murrell. So it got better as the lap went on, but just probably didn't prepare the car enough toward the beginning of the lap because it hurt in that first sector, and then he was chasing his tail from there.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, and I think we'll see potentially there's a few guys coming out, but if any of the guys that are left in the shootout, well, everyone's left in the shootout, obviously, but anyone that was watching paid attention to that lap, they've now got the information for themselves that, yeah, we need to worry about warming these tyres up before we start.
Yeah, that's right. They've got to actually make it a decent effort to prepare the car in such a way that they can make it through to the shootout and be able to get through and set a decent lap time. So next one, Curtis Egmanis, one of the drivers who was on the bubble for the latter stages of qualifying, and he managed to jump himself up the order with a 1 minute 12.8 late in the piece. So he was eighth in the order. He's third out in the shootout. And he's a native Queenslander, but he's not from these parts. He's a little bit further south, I think, down sort of Ipswich to Toowoomba way somewhere, I believe. So got a fair way from here, even though that's a bit closer to Brisbane than it is to Townsville. He's actually in the game, though. He's actually done a pretty decent job of preparing the car, only 0.073 away from the current best time. So how does the car look through sector number 2? Because this is where, if the car rotates and it points and it turns beautifully, you feel really in control of the car and you feel like you're actually on for a good time. He's picked up more time at sector 2, so this is getting very, very close. The car's coming on here, a little bit loose going through over the bump there, and that meant he couldn't use all the real estate. He had to catch that slide. Is there an invoice to pay for that little mistake?
Well, I guess we'll see. It was looking pretty good, all things considered. A bit of a slide out of this corner as well, but it's sort of in that Foley way where it can still be quick. Got the last corner now, and a bit of slide off the exit, or a bit more slide than you wanted. Hung on that limiter for a bit there. See how it goes. And
It's a big improvement too. He actually found a tenth and a half in that final sector. So, as I said, it looked like he might have thrown that away going up and over the railway line, but he has managed to pull that together. So, as you said, it looked like Foley going through there. It could be fast, and indeed, it actually was fast. So, good job there. Goes to the provisional front row with the 7 more runners to come. And this man will be been expecting to be at the pointy end on quite the number of occasions this year. Noah Tara, number 26, CRE Amped Up Racing, second of the amped up cars in the shootout. He's had a couple of wins this year and a couple of poles to boot.
Yeah, I think that's probably the lowest down we've seen him starting in a shootout, but that doesn't mean anything. You can absolutely improve all the same, and we'll see how he goes now on this run. A pretty good run out of the last corner. And really, first corner, pretty inconsequential for the lap, but get down now to the first of the hairpins, and pretty good run. It seemed a little patient on throttle mid-corner, but it actually seems to help the run off the corner itself. And looking pretty good through here as well. Very nicely handled over the bump.
Yep, and a tenth to the good as well as we come up to this section. Let's stay on board here. Just a little bit of curb there, not as much as some of the other drivers. A lot more curb there as well. He actually got a pretty decent turn there at turn number 6 and 7. And he's actually, look at that, he actually gained nearly 0.2 of a second just through the middle sector alone. So the car's looking good it probably is feeling good underneath him at the moment. How's the trip over the railway line? Looks very, very planted as well. Not a hint of wheel spin, not a hint of slide going up and over that really tricky section. It was able to use the whole entire road. Leaves a little bit of real estate on the table at turn 11, but that's not a bad thing there because it makes sure you keep all 4 wheels on the black stuff and keep that traction going, because if you go a little bit too wide, catch a bit of curb, that's where the wheel spin starts to kick in. And he's the first into the 12s. He's done a 12.6 and he did a 12.5 to get in. So again, very, very impressive in terms of a couple of drivers being able to very closely match what they did to get into the dance in the first place.
Yeah, only the second driver to have got anywhere near close to the time they used to get in. I expect some of the guys at the top end will definitely speculate. I don't expect he'll be able to match that time on a one lap run, but really good work from Noah, and he's really set a benchmark for the other guys to try and work to now. Yeah,
that'll be a challenge to catch, I think. The 12.6 is definitely going to be a time that will take a bit of beating, especially considering that this tyre can take, as we talked about, if you don't prepare it properly, it can take up to 2 laps to come in fully to do a decent lap on it. So Ryan Smith did a 12.456 to get into the shootout, so he's got no choice. Tara's gone and done a 12.6, and if Smith can get fairly close to his qualifying lap to get in, then he will then be back ahead of Noah Tara. Left absolutely nothing on the table there on the run to turn 3. The mirror was scraping the concrete barrier on the left-hand side on the approach to the turn-in point. It didn't help him, though, with the clock. He's a tenth and a bit down already and leaves a bit on the table at on the exit of the flip-flop there. And that actually wasn't too bad of a run, but he has still lost a little bit of time. So this is tracking like he will fall in between Tara and Igmanis if it goes this way. Oh, big slide. Had to catch that one going up and over the line.
Yeah, I was getting the feeling at the start of the lap that he was having to tiptoe the car a little bit and sort of confirm my suspicions up over the hill there. But he'll get it back to the line, but he lost a little bit of time there, and he's losing a bit more here as well. The car almost a concern. Maybe he's overheated those rear tyres after that bit of a slide, and it's not really compliant now on the last part of the lap. But he will come to the line, and yeah, big drop off in the end. Yeah, lost a lot in that final sector. The car, as the minute it went up and over the railway line, and then down to 11, it started to disagree. That's where it started to go wrong. He slid a little bit wide in the hairpin, and unfortunately, that's where it started to bleed the time. And then he had to have some corrections on the steering wheel as the car tried to turn into the final corner, and he tried to apply the throttle, and it started to jump sideways. He had to actually push it the other way with the opposite lock to get it to cooperate. So bleeding time in the final sector, unfortunately, for Ryan Smith. Good enough for 4th, just fractionally ahead of Lachlan Locke. Well, we're halfway through the shootout, and the first of the Camaros finally makes an appearance, and it's the defending champion, Kurt Stenberg. What's he got in store for the times keepers this time around? He's got God knows how many poles to his name over the course of ASR as well as the 3 championships. Surely he might be able to pull something out of the bag here and pull out something special, although it looked like it wanted to get away from him there at turn 2. Yeah, it's almost a bit of a speedway line through turn 2 there. Slightly more compliant now through 3 and into 4, though it was a bit unhappy coming off that curb through that dip. And speaking of, it almost got caught on that curb at turn 5. Generally, yeah, a little bit similar to what I mentioned earlier with sort of a folly lap, the way this thing's stepping sideways, but a lot of it's actually just coming from curb use rather than overdriving the car itself. Yes, first sector was very good. It was purple first sector. Second sector has gone away from him a little bit. There's just a couple of little slide moments and a couple of little moments he probably would like to tidy up, but maybe he set this car up more for longevity. Maybe set up for a race. Yeah, look at it. It's so very difficult. It's a big issue. He's gone into the lane. Oh my goodness gracious me. What on earth happened there? Wow. I'd almost be inclined to say that was a bit of lag or something. The way that car just picked up and like it just took over. It just had its own mind of things and just it almost like you'd sent GPS to pit lane. It went right. We'll take you right there. That was really odd. That was extremely odd. Let's have a look at that on the Paint Doctor replay because we were on board when that happened. So that was quite bizarre. I've never seen anything like that before. Have a look at this. So as you can see, trying to pull out of here. So a bit of a slide job, and then yeah, that part there, right in the middle of the circuit, was really, really strange.
I think you're right, Brady. I'm almost of the opinion that you are, that maybe something wasn't quite right. There was a game freeze or something really, really strange there, because that's not normal.
Like, the only other thing is just really wasn't happy with the way that lap ended and decided I'm going to get rid of it really quickly. But like, that was almost rallycross of an entry to pit lane, and that was a bit odd. Anyway, Aiden Williams up now. Good to see how he's going to get along, given, as we mentioned, first time running since the first round. Well, with no Stenberg to chase, he might actually do pretty well, given that he was faster than Stenberg to get in.
Well, he's about the same time that Stenberg did in sector number 1, so he's just fractionally off by 1/1000th of a second in terms of the fastest sector time for sector 1. So now through turn 5 and 6 and 7, or a little bit of a moment there on the exit. What's the clock say here? He's lost a little bit of time, but he's still in the game here versus Noah Tara. He's got to have a nice end to the lap here. How's the car settled up and over the top there? Drives it nice and straight. Now you've got to get your braking right for the last corner. Maximum real estate on the approach there. Nothing left on the left-hand side of the car. Turned in beautifully. Was compliant. It's starting to fight him, though. He left a bit of real estate there on the table at the exit of 12. How's he go through the final corner? Can he get a good purchase off here? It might be close with him and Noah Tara. Doesn't take the shortest path to the line, and he gets a good final sector time. What a ripping final sector that was, a 33.6 for Aiden Williams, and he shoots to the top. Well, that's a 12.2, and to get into the shootout, he actually did a 12.3, so that's a massive improvement for him. And I'll tell you what, that will take some beating.
Oh, absolutely. I think the only blow on that lap really was seemed like a lot of push from the front end through turn turn 6. But otherwise, yeah, it was a Top Gear recently priced car lap, and that it didn't look very remarkable, but it was quick. That was very good, and I think I'm not expecting too many other guys to beat their runs in the shootout, let alone match them. I think that's going to take some real work to beat now.
This man might have a shot at beating or matching his own time to get into the shootout, because he's been on fire lately. He did have that little sort of not too great return at Barbagallo, but he absolutely dominated the last time out at Hidden Valley. So he is a man that's got going to have some, people that have a target on his back, but he will definitely be striving to try and get to that front row at the very least. He's in the game at Sector 1 as well. Wasn't as strong as Aiden Williams, but it's definitely in there, and he looks a little bit more aggressive through the middle part of the lap. And aggressive, I'll tell you what, he found a 10.5 through that middle sector of the lap. Aggressive is an understatement. He is flying.
He is, yeah, really using up all of the track now, right up to the wall there, and right up to the wall through here as well. Very good run now down towards the last couple of corners. Good, smart use of that curb, just enough to get a good line, but not enough to inflict some spin in the car. Ringing the limiter quite heavily there into the last corner, but it will probably help him as well. And a pretty smooth run to the line is going to set him slightly behind.
Slightly behind. That just goes to show you how good that last sector was from Aiden Williams, though, doesn't it? So purple sector in the middle from McFarlane, but his final sector was a 33.8 compared to Williams' 33.6, and it looked really planted through the last couple of corners. It looked like it was handling well, but just went away a little bit. So Aiden Williams has literally thrown the kitchen sink at the number 94 machine, and he has pulled off a blinding final sector. That's why I said I think that was going to take some real time to beat, because that final sector is far and above, I think, anything that we've seen so far this evening. And there's only 2 more cars that can possibly go out and beat that, and here's one of them, Luke Newing, the one that we were talking about a little bit earlier, that hopefully his luck was about to change. Well, he's in the shootout, and he's in a good position to make that luck change.
Yeah, so the only other Camaro in the top 10. He's looking a little deep there at turn 2. Yeah, that's properly deep at turn number 2. That's going to be costly when it comes up here to the first sector split. It's costly to the tune of a 10.5. So, yep, that was definitely off the line. Car struggled to turn. You'll be chasing your tail from here on in. Front row still possible, but I dare say at this stage it looks like it might probably be second row, which would still be pretty respectable if you're Luke Newing. Down here, he's lost a little bit of time. This is where he needs to find something. He needs to dig deep here, because being 2 tenths down, you're on the second row of the grid at the moment. It was a lightning final sector, though, from Aiden Williams, and he really needs to pull out all the stops here. Does the car come on?
Nice use of the curb on the inside at 11. Looking compliant in the final sector. Not looking overly leery, but also not looking overly fast. Just looking smooth here. I think just got to put a time on the board now. Kind of known you're chasing your tail from here. Clock keeps ticking, ticking, and more ticking, and he gets into a 12.7. So he actually is now on the second row of the grid provisionally with Noah Turra with one runner to go. So it could be fifth for Newing, but still in the top 10 and up the pointy end of the standings. It's definitely a welcome bit of news in that camp.
It is. The one thing I will quickly note from the run prior as well is McFarlane was also a second one to improve on his time, but clearly not enough given the strength of the Williams run. And Newing 5/10 off there, so clearly whether it was a lack of car prep or a tune that went the wrong way, it just wasn't as compliant as it was in qualifying. The last driver, and the driver that had potentials to go into an 11 in qualifying, is Will Devonish. He's chasing a 12 flat, which he's probably almost going to need to beat Aiden Williams. But 1 or 2 tenths drop-off is going to put him in trouble.
Yeah, he's got to be really careful here. He has to be super committed. At one stage, Devonish did have a 12.2 on the board, and he got down to a 12.0 at the end of the day. So he can't leave anything on the table here. He's actually got to go for it. This is not one of those ones where, 9/10 of a lap is good enough. It's got to be, 10.5 tenths of a lap is going to be good enough. He's got to actually go out there and really chase Aiden Williams for this pole position if he wants it. I think he'll settle for something on the front row if he can take it, but he's really got to be tuned in here. Okay, well, that's a start. He's actually in the game at the moment, but I would have thought that he would have liked to have been in front at this point, considering he knows how strong that final sector was from the number 94.
Yeah, so it'll be a bit of work from here. But if anyone's capable of doing it, and there we go. So swung it back through into the end of the second sector.
Not a purple, though.
Up to run. No, not a purple. No, but it's really going to be playing fine-tooth comb at this point. He's going to be finding little tenths here or there. It's going to be the micro sectors that make this lap for him.
That's right. So through the final sector, doesn't look as fast and as flamboyant as Aiden Williams, but does it pay dividends for him? At least he'll be looking for a front row. I think he'll settle for the front row. Pole would be lovely for him, but if it's a front row, he'll take that all just the same. He comes across the line. It's third. He drops to the second row of the grid, and it's Aiden Williams. You've got an ASR Supercars pole, my friend.
That's a pretty way to do it as well, going back after, near on 6 months. A really good run from Williams, and yet just a shooking lap, and clearly in a good way, but just something that I don't think the rest of the guys in the shootout had really considered as an option. And Stenberg, well, not exactly not pushing. Maybe the car wasn't quite there for him, but in the end of the day, really good run from Williams to pick up his first pole, and in what is only probably 20-odd races of a career. And McFarlane as well, just doing that strong run in second. And crucially, the only two guys, as I mentioned earlier, that actually improved on their qualifying runs.
Well, I'll tell you what, two young bulls off the front row of the grid. I know McFarlane has been, as I said, he's been pretty damn quick at Hidden Valley, and he's equally quick here again this evening. But I'll tell you what, that's going to be an interesting situation off the front row. We're not going to have the I'm going to go out here on a limb now and say this, Ruddy. We're not going to have the Will Devonish, fluffing of the starts on the front row of the grid tonight. I think we're going to get two really good front row starts from these two young bulls, and we're going to see a really interesting duel all the way down to turn number 2 on the opening lap.
I'm expecting, like, I do have the information in front of me. I can bring it up so I can actually say it properly. Yeah, a 63 lap race. I get the impression that we're not going to see the start of a 63 lap race. We're going to see the start of about a 15 lap race. Yep, I think so. There's going to be a lot of energy from those two at the front.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, while we go into the warm-up session for 5 minutes before we get set for 180 Ks at Townsville, we are going to have a look at the driver standings entering round number 7, because 6 rounds of the championship have indeed been completed, as we've been talking about already tonight. We have exited halftime and we are getting ready to go. So the championship leader, well, he's going to start third for this one. Luke Speck, who missed out on the shootout, is going to be starting down there in 11th place. And then Foley, who missed out on the shootout, who's currently third in the standings. I got a funny feeling, Rhodey, that there might be a bit of swinging in the top sort of 6 or 7 spots tonight. I don't think Devonish is going to be overhauled tonight because he's definitely got some margin in hand here, and of course drop rounds not being factored in. But I'm looking down the order, the likes of Noah Tara, Brenton Foley, Kurt Stenberg, Luke Speck. Even Lockie Lock, and all those guys that are on the high 900s in terms of points, the exception there being Damon McDonald, who's not here. I get the impression that this top 10 picture here is probably going to change quite significantly tonight.
Well, a lot of this has been made up this year. Really, not that there's not been pace on the field. There clearly has with the run that Will Devonish has been having to be 215 points clear of second. But it's kind of been a mixture of people, but maybe aren't. It's kind of just been subtle pace, and also just been from the people that have turned up. Because Specky's been here every round, Foley's been here every round. Granted, picked up a DQ at Surfers, but he's been here every round. Tara's actually missed a round, but if we take that out from Tara, he's probably the quickest car on the grid, with the exception of Devonish, who also has missed a round. But that's really sort of been it more this year, and it's just sort of been how the calendar has played out and how the appearances have turned out as well. But Specky is someone who's been running quietly along. He's got at least in the last round, so from round 2 onwards, that's what my spreadsheet has. He's picked up 3/3. He's not been a slow driver, but he's not someone we put in that sort of top 4 or 5 bubble. Being at least based off tonight, we can add one to that. The likes of Aidan Williams, Noah Tara, Will Devonish, Corey McFarlane, Kurt Stenberg. He's not in that frame, but to be sitting second in the championship, yeah. But like again, a double DNS for Noah and a pretty poor start to the season. Stenberg Stenberg missed Barbagallo, and I think he's got 1 or 2 other rounds he might be missing as well as the season goes on. And then, Williams, he's done 1 round so far. So he's one that's going to be a big mover. He's coming up, I think, up from 24th in the points. Yeah. So we'll see him coming his way up a little bit. But again, he's chasing guys on 1,000 points and he's on 100. So it's going to take him a while to catch them.
No, that's right. If you go over the next page, you can actually have a look. He doesn't even feature at the moment. Even the guys that have raced, there's a couple of drivers that have raced a bit more than him. Corey McFarlane's in his 3rd round. He's on 360 after that performance at Hidden Valley last time out. Scott Murrell, who's done a handful of rounds as a substitute, he's knocking on the door of the top 10, but he's got a little while to go here. But even a lot of these drivers that are on the block, on the outside the top 10, between 11th and 20th, some of them are going to make some gains tonight as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Murrell, I expect to still keep moving on. Most of the guys that he's chasing down, with the exception of McDonald, and really actually McDonald being out, might, if he has a good finish for Murrell, might be what he needs. Actually, no, he 200 something points clear. No, that might be the driver that promotes Murrell into the 10. But yeah, Murrell again, he just keeps turning up. He's doing the thing, and I think there've been a few other drivers from memory who've done similar stuff. But he's a guest driver who doesn't really get the idea that he's a guest driver, and he's been turning up more than a lot of the regular drivers. He's just keen to drive these cars, and I expect probably next year, depending on how things go for him, might be a consideration to run Supercars full time as an actual committed entry. But he's doing really well. Ryan Smith down in 12th, but I mean, based on the run he has in the top 10 again tonight, expect to see maybe that it's going to play better for him. Lognan's quietly plodding along there and down the back. I think he's figuring some stuff out right now, but that's good. And yeah, there's just some good movement amongst those guys. I think everybody in that list outside of Rossi down in 20th is actually at least on the grid for tonight. So they will get some points if they can get across the line at the end.
Yeah, we need to see Brendan Ross again before the end of the year, I think. So
yes.
we'll be trying to make that one happen, definitely for sure. We go over to the team standings as well. So teams is, I guess, I wouldn't say it's a formality at this point, but you look at the top, there's 3 CRE teams in the top 3. They've all been driving at a very high level, all those drivers so far this year. The CRE engineering one has sort of been, it's mostly a Will Devonish show at the moment because Igmanis has had a couple of not so great performances, but he is starting to find some form a little bit here. The one that's really interesting is going to be the SES Shogun Camaros in 4th versus the CRE Anson Motorsport Camaros in 3rd. So that's probably the tightest battle lot. And now that PBF Race Engineering have got 2 cars here tonight, they might be able to throw down the challenge there. So Camaro teams 3rd, 4th and 5th. Keep an eye out for them and how they progress throughout the course of this evening as well. The likes of Devonish and Co are the first ones to say, what, we're a team first and foremost. We like racing, but we're a team first and foremost, and we want the team's championship because we want to be, up that end of pit lane. And if whoever gets the title at the end of the day, between whether it be Noah in one team or Will in another team, they're the ones that they sort of want to make sure that they're in position first before they go for those sorts of things.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's kind of the focus of some of these guys. It's the race for teams is never really much of a race at this point, given that of those top five that I mentioned, um, we've only actually no, none of that five is actually currently teammates. I think historically, Noah and Will might have run together at some point. Actually, I think we're going back to the days of. I think it did happen. I think going back to like 2021. I think maybe back in the days where Will and Pete Savage were teammates, then Pete was out of the car, so he was filling in. I think we're going back to 2020 at that point, but I believe they've actually run as teammates before. But yeah, there's none of the top five are actually running together as teammates. Will is paired up with Termo. Noah's paired up with Lockie Lock. Kurt's by himself. Corey's still not actually a full-fledged entry yet. He's still running in the guest car. He is an entered driver. He will have a livery hopefully at some point before the end of the season. But at this point, he's basically taken the 55 as his own.
I think he's quite content to have that 55, to be perfectly honest with you.
Oh, probably. Look, to be fair, with the arrangements a lot of other teams have within sort of Super 2, and in terms of getting people to come and fill cars in if their drivers aren't available, there's not too many people that are really wildcarding into the series at this point. So he's in a good spot where there's two guest cars. There's the 55 and there's a Brad Jones inspired number 14 Camaro based on the Freightliner car that Tim Slade used to run. Both these liveries done by Daniel Cox Designs. That exists if people want to fill into that as well. But most of the fill-ins, Scott Morrill being a prime example, have just been filling in at teams that they've. And to be fair, in Morrill's case, he's a CRE driver. He's not even driven CRE half the time. He's over at Vortex Racing Team again. I think mainly because there's no CRE cars to jump into. But that's part of the thing I think that throws it up. Historically, there's been fights with a lot of quick guys teamed up. Foley, the 2018 champion, 2019 champion, was teamed up with Phil Boak, who was fighting for the 2019 championship. I'm trying to remember. I think Will historically, actually, a bit more of a challenge. Will historically, I think, was teamed up with Cam, and Cam's pace probably still a little bit slower than what we're seeing from Termo. Termo's just not quite having a good run on across the board. He's having some good runs here and there, but not consistently, unfortunately. But probably about similar there. And then we go back to the days of the Pixel guys being here, and we go back to sort of prior to Pixel and. That was Loose Sim Sport. And you had Lewis and Rossi running under the same banner. And look, I think by their own admission, especially towards the back end, they might be feeling like they're falling off in pace a little bit. I know the whole thing out of Rossi was trying to adopt. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was somebody from Super 2 who had the the approach of hashtag not last. Rossi spent, I think, a good 12 or 18 months trying to convince me that he was the slowest car on the grid, which didn't work because he was never the slowest car on the grid. But there was a good challenge open there for teams. It's just the way things have fallen this year. Attendance has been a bit spotty for PBF. The SES Shogun guys, they're probably realistically the best external from CRE challenge to combat CRE, but they're just still not quite there. They've missed a couple of rounds here and there. Like their pace is there or thereabouts. Obviously, Newing being up where he is tonight, Spec being second in the championship. But again, attendance probably the big play there. That's sort of what's locking into a CRE holding. And not only that, to have just that many drivers that score points, but consistently score good points is why it's a top three lockout. Although what's probably helping Sierra Anton as well is that they've had Scott Murrell drive that car, I think, for 2 rounds now, and Lockie Burkfield at one point as well.
Yeah, he certainly did. Well, while we wait for, we're actually just waiting to see if there's one entrant who will actually make it back in time for racing to commence. They've actually got a minute and a half, and then it will be advancing at that point. Just a quick look at the calendars. It sits right now, so round 7 tonight. Round 8 coming up 3 weeks' time, August the 8th, international round. We're off to the Temple of Speed, Monza. So just to confirm, everybody, if you haven't had a chance to see the updates, we haven't publicly made it in the channels yet, but the round format for Supercars, it's actually a slightly longer distance. So it's 2 120 kilometre races, which is 21 laps around Monza. So that's going to be an eternity. But there is a compulsory pit stop in each race, and the soft tyre is in play. So that'll be something to be mindful of there. Sandown, round 9, that's the 250. That's coming up August 29th. September 19 is the Bend. That's the sprint round. October 17, the Bathurst 300. And then round 12, Adelaide on the 7th of November, the 2 100k races to finish off the season. Okay, so there's a fair bit of work to do for some of these drivers. In between now and then to get the point score going before we get to Adelaide. Going to be one of the earliest finishes of a season in most recent memory. And usually we're going out to either last week of November or we're into the early weeks of December. So it's a rather early finish this year for everybody in a condensed 12-round season. And we are set to go racing. Unfortunately, Phil Boak looks like his wheel has given up the ghost. So we've unfortunately got that news that has come through. So we are back to 19 runners for the race this evening. And it just so happens to be race 14 of the championship. I think I was doing the math earlier in the week, Rhodey, and I think I've worked it out. We've got 23 races for the season. And we are effectively, not only are we halfway through the season, but we are up and over the halfway point in terms of the number of races themselves as well. So it's almost perfect timing.
Yeah, that would sound up about right, given a lot of the back end of the season is, or the exception of I think the Bend and now Monza, is basically single races. So it's going to be very much be skewed with a lot of the sprint and the double headers that we had in the first half of the season. Yeah,
so 3 single race events, 2 double race events, and a triple race event to end the season. So that's where it sits now. Well, the grid is rolling, and the first-time pole sitter leads them away.
It does. So Aidan Williams for AF Racing is the pole sitter tonight, and as we mentioned, his first pole in what is a very short career at ASR. So hopefully this is a sign of things to come for Aidan Williams if he can get his attendance a little bit more squared away. Starting alongside him is Corey McFarlane in the Tickford Racing Jaguar XJ9 inspired guest car. Good to see Corey on a good run of form again. With Will Devonish starting third. It's given the relatively experienced front row probably not as far back as he expected to be starting, so he's got a bit of work to do. Fourth is Noah Tara here for Series Amped Up Racing, the one of 2 cars on the grid tonight, with Luke Newing up in 5th in the Dare Ice Coffee Back SES Shogun number 17. 6th is Curtis Ekmanis running his Indigenous livery again for Series Engineering, with Scott Murrell in 7th. He's filling in for Bailey Hall. It's the Vortex Racing team, so easy car to spot out here tonight, the bright green. 8th is Ryan Smith for SES Squad Division. Good to see one of those cars on the grid again tonight. Good to see him up in the top 10. With Lockie Lock in 9th Series Amped Up Racing. He's also running his Indigenous livery. 10th is Kurt Stenberg, courtesy of his rally crossing at the end of his qualifying or his shootout lap, with Luke Speck back in 11th. He's got a bit of work to do. Foley back in 12th. It's one of the first times we've seen him out of a shootout in a while, with Daniel Cox in 13th. Mitchell Steele-Alison back on the grid again tonight for PBF by SES in 14th place, with Cam Rutledge in 15th. Darren Lognan is in 16th, the second to the Vortex Racing Team Mustangs, with Steve Warwick in 17th, just the one Renstall PBF Luxus Camaro here tonight. 18th is Darryl Callahan for Lytton Q Racing. Q Racing number 6. No team out for him, unfortunately, tonight either. And Brandon Dostal is the last car on the grid for Lipnicure Racing by SES.
Well, they're all lined up and ready to go here. We are just awaiting starters' orders, and then we will be underway. So the last car to get in position is Luke Newing, and we are set for the one and only race tonight, the 180 kilometres of Townsville, and away we go. But for the first time, the number 95 leads them away, and it's a pretty even start. In fact, better secondary phase to start for McFarlane. He's got the ascendancy on the inside here, heading down through the kink at turn 1. Tara's going to try and go with him. Oh, what happened there? I think it's for a moment it was McFarlane who just sort of faded into a bit of an oblivion there, and through goes Tara, and I think there must have been a game lag or something for McFarlane, because he had the high ground going into turn number 2. He vanished all of a sudden. Now he's back to P2.
Yeah, he was lucky that he didn't get spun out there, given that he reappeared in front of Tara, basically in the braking zone. Really lucky that all he lost out of that was a spot. Also, speaking of losing spots, Will Devon's got basically just shuffled straight through. Stenberg was one of the guys to get through on him, as is still Aris, and as has Murrell. Stenberg's basically knocked off a lot of this advantage of his qualifying run at Will Devonish. One of the better starters on the grid, but perhaps Will Devon will start kicking in there again, unfortunately for him, and then just ran out of friends by the time he got to turn 2.
Well, he was third on the grid coming into this one, and he now lies 11th. So that's a terrible start for Will Devonish. Have a look at Steele Allison. He's made his way into the top 10 here. He's 9th. He started 14th in this race, I'm pretty sure. He's in there behind Stenberg. Yeah, he is. He started 14th. He's up 5 spots. He's actually gone ahead of Murrell, who started inside the 10. He's now 10th and last inside the 10 at the moment, ahead of Will Devonish. And then you had, I think, Luke Newing was the one who... he's lost a packet load out of here. He was up there in the top 5 spots. He's now outside the 10. He's back there as well as Devonish tries to shove his way down the inside of Murrell. That's a little bit elbows out as things go on at the beginning of lap number 2. And here goes Steele Allison down the inside of the other one of the SES Camara, so he gets that position done as well. So not wasting any time here is the PBF by SES number 24. He is definitely the man on the move in the early going here.
Yeah, he's got a good bit of giddy up going at the moment. Actually, lucky little white there in the grass in the back. A couple of cars having some fun in this early laps, and it's a very sized moment out of Luke Newing as well in the background, coming through, I think it was turn 4. I think he got the hump a bit wrong and just sprayed the car in the direction of the fence, but just about caught it up. But yeah, for you guys now, probably really starting to get those cars broken, as we mentioned, from the shootout. About now is where the tyres are really going to start to be playing ball for them. But really good start from Steele Allison, whether he just was a good tyre warming of the outlap or just really switched on. But Will Devonish now trying to fight his way back through. Bit of an elbows out move there on Luke Speck, trying to force some racing room into the last corner, and he's just about got that to work, but he is now vulnerable to the 2 Mustangs behind him.
Couple of Camaro battle here going on down at turn number 2 with Stenberg taking the ascendancy here over Brenton Foley, who was up 6 spots. He's now been demoted once, so that's again a good start for him, up outside the 10 into the top 10. So Steele Allison as well, another one that's come forward. Ryan Smith, who's pretty much, I think, he's been the beneficiary of a couple of drivers falling down the order, so he's gained, I guess, a couple of positions by one of the, as Homer Simpson would say, the 2 most beautiful words in the English language, default. So he's gained a couple of spots there, and everyone's still driving along quite nice at the moment. Even Brandon Dostal, who started plumb last in all of this, has picked up 5 spots at the beginning of the race. So there's definitely been a lot of moving on the opening, 3 laps of this race. Still a long way to go here. Steele Allison down the inside, Brenton Foley, a little bit elbows out. Devonish couldn't quite follow him through, and I think Foley actually closed the door pretty quickly as soon as the Mustang, the number 24, was through. In fact, I think Steele Allison, I'm not sure if he was trying to give position up there or something, but it's lent the way that it is, and now Devonish is going to try and tuck into a double slipstream here, I think, and maybe get somewhere, although this is more a rolling roadblock, I think, than it is a double slipstream for Will Devonish right now.
Yeah, I will quickly mention on the case of Dostal, he did actually have some really good time in the practice session. I think he was sitting 7th at one point. He did leave a little fast time started to come in, but he was running pretty well. And he did have a pretty good run. Actually, no, he wasn't demonstrated last week. No, but he has had some good runs at points in the season. Unfortunately, he's not quite on his way, but he's running pretty good tonight so far. He's got a long way to go, though. Yeah, definitely got a long way to go. He's, as I said, he's up into 14th place. He's just behind this little battle on screen that we're looking at here, block ahead
of the SES Camaro of Luke Ewing. So go through a shot there. There is Brandon Dostal. Just actually managed to pass Cam Rutledge in the last few moments or so, but he did give the tyre walls a rub there on the outside of turn number 8, which you don't want to do. That actually has given the drivers behind a little bit of an incentive to try and catch up. I'll tell you what, Dostal actually has been pretty quick in these cars, even though he keeps saying that he doesn't, he's not a fan of how they drive and that. He seems to find a bit of a sweet spot. You remember at Hidden Valley, there was the long race first, and he came in for an early stop, and on the newer tyres, he was flying through the field. So he definitely knows how to handle these cars in certain spots. It's just that it's that mental mindset, isn't it, Rhodey?
It can be to a bit, and I suppose potentially with the cars and the way of driving it, it might simply be, and I'm not knocking people for this approach. It might simply be that these cars are a bit more of a challenge, a bit more. There's a bit more sort of thinking, a bit more processing that goes into driving these cars over, say, the Dev Series cars. And look, to be fair, I can respect to a degree the desire and the want to drive a car that allows you to just plug in and drive away. But look, it's a bit of a different approach maybe for Dostal, but again, early days, we're lap 5, but he's made a pretty good start of things, and he's kept himself out of trouble. He's actually at this point, I think he's starting to pull away from Camera as well. So he's from there, the next car up ahead of him is Luke Ewing, and to be fair, he is going to be in the chat with the likes of Luke Ewing, who expect Ryan Smith as the SES guys. Look, they'll be able to pass some good tips onto him. I imagine he'll have some help with he would have had some help with setup, but he'll have some help with way to go on strategy. This could work out to be a good race for him. And look, at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what you need if you're not enjoying the cars or the series, is just have a good race here and there and come good for you. I mean, we look at the likes of Nathan Higginson, who's on here tonight because he pulled out of Supercars to focus on Dev Series. He was, I think, of minds of putting the Dev Series to bed as well, and then he came out last week and won. And I think at this point he's pretty, he's definitely changed his tune, and I think at this point he's looking at continuing for the rest of the year.
Yeah. So Stenberg's just managed to get past the aforementioned Ryan Smith, who you mentioned in the same breadth as the SES guys who are all sitting in there. And that moves Stenberg up to 4th place, which is probably where I think we would have expected him to qualify in the shootout had the aforementioned incident not have happened. I was about to say that the top 3 were just sort of starting to just settle down and just start to slowly work with each other and slowly start to edge away. And now Stenberg's on the tail, so they might be getting a little bit of a hurry up here in the next few minutes or so. And of course, Stenberg and McFarlane know each other very, very well, so there might be a little bit of communication between the two of them there, but they will know how to race each other when it all comes to be. Interesting to see, even after 7 laps, you've got probably the top dozen cars are still inside of each other on the front straight. So they're not, it's not like they're hanging around or anything. They are definitely all just settled into this groove at the moment. Fastest lap at the moment does belong to Kurt Stenberg, 13.3. And last time around it was 13.4 for him, where the leaders have sort of settled into the 14s. So that's what Stenberg's going to be faced with now. He's going to be tacked onto the back of the number 95. Sorry, I called it the 94 earlier. It's the 95 of Aidan Williams. And these guys are going to be doing probably 14s. They're going to be driving to some fuel numbers, I think, for the next little while or so. Especially because you're going to try and make the tyres last to a certain point. It is a decent chunk longer in terms of lap time than it was for the development series race 7 days ago. So they've got to find about another 10 laps or so tonight. So that halfway point for hard tyres effectively becomes almost unviable, because the tyres are probably going to be pretty close to being down on the canvas. So you need some luck to go your way when it comes to safety cars and all sorts of things to make it here on one stop. Probably not a bad opportunity here, I think, Rhodey, to actually take a look at our Pallet Control Solutions race facts, because the fuel burn rate going off of the development series round was around 4.3 was the magic number. If you could hit that, you could make it home in one stop. But realistically, if you're pushing out in front, you're going to be sort of in the mid-4s, and that's where it starts to become sort of troublesome. But the big key here, and we've already seen this at the beginning of this race, is minimising, there's a bit of a moment there for Aidan Williams, minimising the easy mistakes that you can make as Stenberg grabs another spot. So the easy mistakes we're referring to are things like running wide at certain corners, running into the runoff zones, going deep in places like this. You know, you've got some runoff area deliberately there for it in the chicane, so you don't have to make any sort of, any more drastic moves or things like that. You've actually got some bailout room, but also minimising the slide jobs, because if you slide the car through some of these corners, you break traction. It's very, very easy for the competitor behind, as you see right here with Brent Foley down the inside of Curtis Igmanis, to make that move happen.
Yeah. So that's the thing, especially the length of the race and the way this race plays out is very easy, especially if you're trying to pass someone, is you just put yourself on the rear bumper of them and might make a mistake. And while there is spaces to make mistakes at this track, there's really no ways that you can make a mistake and still keep some speed with it. The best place to probably do that is through the fast chicane, but even then you're going to pick up, I think it's actually potentially
Whoops.
2 track cuts. As a small mistake from Igmanis, puts him to the rear of Foley, and actually Foley was lucky in that the cars behind were far enough back that he didn't lose any spots, but Igmanis losing 3 in the process.
And check that, I was about to say, check that out. That's an easy mistake to do, and look what it cost him. It actually cost him quite a fair bit of time and positions there as well. So for Igmanis, definitely not what you want to be doing too often. But thankfully early in the race, so he's got the opportunity there to recover. So as we sit right now, the biggest movers, of course, as it looks like McFarlane maybe has just made a move for the lead of the race, and indeed he has, just down at turn 11. So he's decided to finally pull the trigger here on Noah Turrup and go out in front and on his own a little bit here. Now, can Turrup get him back down the front straight here, or is he just quite content to sit back and just go into like a bit of a fuel save as McFarlane sets the quickest lap of the race? I guess that might be a bit of impetus from Will Devonish, who just set it a lap prior, as he's slowly making his way through the field. He's now up to 5th, and McFarlane's just got that car on some rails at the moment here. If you're looking from Noah Turrup's point of view, look at it just waltz away in the acceleration zone road. It just gallops out to maybe a good couple of metres advantage every single time, and look, he just starts to get a little bit smaller in that front mirror as he just starts to disappear.
Yeah, he's got the car set up really well at this point, McFarlane. And I think the other thing as well I'm seeing is Noah's staying with him, but he's not making an effort to try and stay with him as such. I think he's just happy to be towed along. I think in the case of Noah and I'd say maybe the case of Will, but the difference is Noah actually really could have commenced this race where he thought he would, whereas Devonish has had to work to get back to where he qualified. I think definitely in Tara's case, I think he's driving to a number. It's probably a number he can be flexible with, a number that still allows a bit of pace, but I think he's driving to a number, and I think in McFarlane's case, he, to put it bluntly, probably just got bored of following around to a number, and that or his strategy or whatever he's got planned doesn't align with whatever number that Tara's driving to.
Well,
and Stenberg, another driver, we mentioned if they're close, if they're sharing on strategy, Stenberg fastest lap through there as well, and actually Devonish just improved upon it. Yeah, I think of the front runners, Noah's probably the one, and maybe Williams. I don't know. He's the big question mark, just given his lack of recent time around here. I don't know how much thought is gone in on his end. I can picture where CRE have been at. I was lurking in their chat earlier, but I do not know where Williams is at. But I'd be inclined to say maybe they're 2 guys that are thinking big picture with this.
Yeah, I think so. Well, the pace has ratcheted up quite significantly out in front, because 3 or 4 laps ago they were doing 14s. Now they're all doing low 13s, and in Devonish's case it was a 12.9 last time around. So the pace is quite comprehensively picked up here, and McFarlane's the one that's trying to lead that charge out in front. There was a very brief yellow flag in sector 1 for a moment there on the live timing. I'm not sure what that was for. But as you see there is a car off the back of the field. It is Darryl Callaghan in 19th place, the last of the runners at the moment. So again, they're all coming up to the final corner here. McFarlane leads them around, and what sort of lap times have we got in store this time? Because we are now 11 laps into this race. McFarlane goes again, 12.8, so the pace ratchets up again. He's 2/10 quicker than Noah Turro, who's 2/10 quicker than Kurt Stenberg, who's, and then Aidan Williams was slowly starting to lose a little bit of ground there. He did a 12.9 last time around, and Devonish a 13.4. So they're definitely pushing each other at the moment and trying to build another margin. Then there's this next group that's as equally as important to look at here. So Steele Allison has elevated himself 8 places in the running order here. He's now gone ahead of Ryan Smith in the last couple of laps. So he's now probably not got, I wouldn't say he's not got the pace to set out and try and challenge the drivers out in front, the leading group of 4 or 5 cars. But this is an equally important sort of battle group, because you've got Smith in here, Foley, who's now got Murrell all over his tail, and then the first of the SES Camaros in spec in 10th place. So they're all very much in this little picture here, and in both cases, Rhodey, when it comes to pit stops and pit stop sequences and pit stop strategy, this will be very important to work out who stops and when, because there will be overcuts and undercuts for sure.
Yeah, one thing I will say to peel back the curtain a little bit based on some discussions that I was hearing, and I think I was sort of waiting on evidence to confirm, and I think this is the evidence I've needed. I did hear some suggestions that from about lap 10 onwards until I think it was something in the region of lap 20, that for whatever reason the cars would be really, really good. Maybe it was just a stage of tyre life or what it was, and maybe it was maybe tyre and fuel, maybe something else in the setups from whoever I was hearing it from. But what I was hearing was that the cars probably hit like a new level in the next 10 or so laps, which would back, given that the last lap through and for a couple of laps there, everyone back to Will Devonish was running in the 12s, which would lead to support the fact that the cars improved a little bit in this window of the race, which I'm not sure quite what that leads into before. And to be fair, a car being capable of 12s in tyre and or fuel does not necessarily mean that a driver is going to be doing all those laps. I think Supercars is a slight difference perhaps from the likes of the guys who are running I think at this point it's actually going the other way, where the people that are running to a defined strategy are going to be the ones that are going to be pushing hard, and those that are running to a loose strategy are going to be running a bit more gently so that they can be flexible with potentially where they pit if and when around a safety car and or other cars.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's interesting you mentioned actually about who's running a little bit, sort of loosely and all that sort of stuff. Brandon Dostal's just gone past Curtis Igmanis. Now, Igmanis was inside the top 10 when he qualified. He's now down to 14th. So yes, we did see him make that little mistake a little bit early on, but he doesn't seem to have got any of that sort of real, sort of true pace that we saw him get into the shootout. So is he now sort of resigned to the fact that, okay, well, I'm down the order here, I may as well try and do something a little bit different, run a little bit longer, just run to that number as best as I can, because maybe I might have a dividend to pay a bit later on if, safety car comes out at the right point in time, or so on and so forth. Because remember too, sharing a garage with Will Devonish, you obviously can't pit these cars together on the same lap where they are on the road. They're only 21 seconds apart. It's going to take longer than that to do the stop.
Yeah, I just having a look through his last laps through. He's picked up a couple of 14s here or there, but he's been running otherwise 15s. He had a 16 there at one point, which is probably what gave Dostal a bit of a carrot to chase him down. But I get the impression maybe for where Termo's at, that maybe it was a plan from early on, maybe it was a plan for now, but he definitely seems to have set himself into a line of thinking that is very much long race focus, try to get the car to a number, because Dostal, not quite the same strength as a like of a McFarlane or a Stenberg or a Devonish even, I think, or actually still Allison at this point. But he does seem like, same thing, he's just pulling away. Not as quickly, but he is very much driving a different style of race to Igmanis at this point. I think Curtis has realised that, or maybe even before that, but he's not chasing him for much the same reason as, I wasn't expecting to see Taro, who's actually just been passed by Stenberg. We've seen that in the timing. I wasn't expecting him to chase down McFarlane, because it's very much is the strategy option for, I think, Dostal. I think at this point, I think he's not looking at playing any long games with this. He just wants to have a car he can enjoy. And look, the way to do that is just drive it like it's a sprint race. Just drive until you pit, which for him is probably, a two-stop race means he'd probably be in something like lap 21.
Yeah. Whoops, he's made a mistake.
Just gone around.
Yep, and gone around there, yes, at the corner there, and that will be the opportunity he uses to take to the pit. So that is, he's got a puncture as well, so he's got no choice. He has to change that. So that is a pit stop by force majeure, and force majeure of your own nature. So in he comes, and yep, we stay green, so no yellow flag for that one. And that's just what we talked about in the beginning, Rhodey, that minimising those easy mistakes to make. That's a very easy mistake to make. That's a mistake involving your right foot.
Yeah. That's to a degree. It's also depending on where the tyres are at. And to be fair, if the good window for the tyres lasts to about lap 20, that maybe leans into more of a driver's a point of fact rather than where the car is at. That said, I've just been looking through the field and seen a few other guys get a little bit leery at points as well, and these are drivers that don't normally get leery. So maybe while the tyres are good, maybe the tyres are starting to get on, but maybe also I know we've seen this in the past with some cars, and the Gen 2 car was a good example of a car that you actually want to have a little bit of fuel in the car even on a quick lap because it will be some stability at the rear of the car. Maybe we're seeing the same for some of these guys now. I would speak from authority having driven Gen 3, but I've only driven it once, and you couldn't argue I drove it competitively. But it could be a similar thing where these cars actually like a bit of fuel in it, and maybe for these guys that have committed to a two-stop, they've fueled for a two-stop, and they're starting to get into essentially qualifying fuel loads and not having qualifying strength of tyre.
No, that's right. Well, you mentioned that Kurt Stenberger got past Noah Turra a little bit earlier as well. He definitely has, and he's moved on. In fact, Aidan Williams has now gone past Noah Turra as well, and I think Will Devonish is not far off doing the same. Have a look at McFarlane. He's gotten out to nearly a 3-second advantage over Stenberg at the moment, so that pace has definitely been coming for a little while. We're into lap 17 of 63, and the two cars that we've sort of expected to be well and truly up the pointy end are definitely at the pointy end of the field. They run 1 and 2, and now what about everybody else behind? You can see that Tara has definitely faded a little bit here, and maybe it's just this part of the race where he's not quite you're not quite happy with the car he's got underneath him, because remember, you can't do much in terms of the tuning of these cars, as we have seen. Brandon Dossel has retired from this race. You can't do much tuning with the cars. You've got to do very minimal, so you can change your wing level, you can change tyres and tyre pressures, you can change brake bias, but you can't do all the old anti-roll bar adjustments that you used to do in the Gen 2 cars. And in fact, even in the Gen 2 cars with the development series, the roll bars are disabled, so you can't do much on that front either. The only things you've got at your disposal are the same things we've just mentioned, the wing level and the brake bias and those sorts of things, and very minimal adjustments. You've got a bit more flexibility in a modern day supercar, but you still have a little bit that you can't do, which a lot of people were very good at in the day, being able to change that brake bias and not as much that, but the anti-roll bars on the fly, being able to adapt the car to changing conditions. And I guess that, Brody, is why a lot of drivers have sort of struggled to come to the terms with these cars of, for so long been able to do that anti-roll bar adjustment, but you can't do it now. So it's just something that a lot of people naturally go for, it's not there anymore.
Yeah, so it does change your approach towards the end of a stint as to have basically you have to be the roll bar rather than having the roll bar be the roll bar. I will say, actually, I've just noticed that he was quite lucky there, McFarlane. I've noticed a couple of guys in their runs through turn 2 there'd be a reason to it, but they start opening their corners up quite early to the point where they're actually running right up next to a gap in the fence, which is there and set up in a direction that it allows it to be safe. It's a gap in the track for marshals to like to get through in case there's a collision down there and cover some bits. But I won't necessarily shame them by mentioning who it was, but I did know somebody at one point tonight who actually got wide enough through there. They actually clipped the wall itself and actually spun themselves around. That is effectively a 200 and something k/h to zero impact, and these cars are a bit sensitive in the front area. I wouldn't advise people to push out that wide. It's a very easy way to kill a race with no real gain of action otherwise.
You saw Will Devonish get past Noah Tara there on this lap, so that moves him up into P4, so one spot down from where he was. Williams is doing his best to go with Stenberg here. In terms of the lap times, there's times where he's a little bit quicker and there's times where he's a little bit slower, but it's sort of going in favour of the number one at the moment. He's being able to just edge away by a tenth or two a lap over the 95. We're getting to the point now where we're expecting to, if you're two-stopping this race, and you're splitting it into thirds, you will be in the next couple of laps. So that's the important piece to consider there. Foley now down the inside of Ryan Smith. That'll be for position number 8. He'll give him plenty of room on the other side there. They're going to run side by side now up to turn number 3. The ascendancy on the inside will be to Foley, but they're going to try and make this work too wide round the corner, and that's what we talked about. You've got to minimise that mistake. The fence was coming up, and Smith had to concede, because if he hadn't conceded, he would have found his pink and black bumper bar buried smack in the fence on the outside of turn number 3, and then it would have caught up the two Camaros behind him.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just, yeah, sort of big picture driving. I think for Smith, he's maybe not quite, at least at this point in the race, where he was at earlier tonight. But he's been running on pretty stably. He's dropped the spot from qualifying, but he's running. Oh, he nearly got back on volley there.
And that's costly, and that's really costly. Yep, there goes Newing through on the inside there, and again, the easy mistakes just creep in. It's close proximity combat here around the streets. It's not like Adelaide where it's a little bit narrower and the concrete walls are a little bit closer in just about everywhere. You've got a little bit more real estate to play with here, but if you make one of those mistakes, you're about to cough one up. And I'll tell you what, Smith might be under pressure from Spec here as well down at turn number 2, and he's going to have to give the number 13 there a little bit of room, and he does, and he loses another spot. So again, just very costly run. You made yourself completely vulnerable, and you lost 2 spots in 3, 4, 5 corners.
I mean, in that the first loss in Newing was definitely a mistake-based thing, but I get the impression with Spec that similar to what we've seen from other drivers, I get the impression that Ryan just assessed that they were on different strategies, and there wasn't much point fighting it, because that was very much well, to be fair. Also, the advantage, as I mentioned, they are indirect teammates as well. And if it suits their strategy that Spec gets through, then Spec would get through. Yeah, that was definitely looked more of a our strategies are different. You go on, you go burn your tyres up. Meanwhile, I'll stay back here and beat you at the end.
I was about to say race leader was about to start encountering some lap traffic, and Darryl Callaghan was the one that he had to encounter, and he actually just went straight around the outside of turn number 2, so there's a bit of smart driving there. Stenberg will be the next one to come across him, and it'll be in a bit of a difficult section here, but I'll tell you what, that's really good observance by Darryl Callaghan there. Just realised what was happening, stayed completely to the left, racing lines on the right, so he knew the rule pretty quickly, and away he goes. So definitely not impeding anybody to a significant point. So even after 22 laps, you're getting into lap traffic, and he's still got his wits about him. So that's good to see. Now, still no callers on pit lane yet. We are officially at 1/3 distance into this race, and keeping an eye out for anything that might happen in the next little bit. Now, I'll tell you what, Rody, there was a bit of a kerfuffle, let's just call it this way, a kerfuffle, over the pit lane entry procedures following the development series round. Now, I don't know how many of these have actually been logged, but when you come up to the pit entrance, and if we go on board with Luke Speck here, you'll see what I mean. Off to the right-hand side is the pits themselves. Now, you have to come in via the dotted line, right? If you start crossing over that little bit of a verge that exists, that's there, it's where the 2 yellow lines sort of diverge into a triangle before they become a dotted line. Like if you're sort of, got a wheel or 2 on the line going into the pits because of the approach, then that's not so bad. But if you start to cross over 2 solid yellow lines, you've got a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I'll come back to the thing I was about to mention. It's just very odd. Anyway, yeah, we saw this in Dev Series last round. And for those watching the broadcast, you will notice that that Coxie was quite animated about it. Part of I think was his 4 vodkas or whatever it was he had before the broadcast started. But he was quite animated about pit entries, and we have had situations in the past. We did. There was historically precedents where I think we basically went through the entire field one year for Queensland. For how you take turn one, because you can technically enter the pit lane and infringe on the pit lane very heavily at turn 1 if you take the wrong line through the corner. And we did also, I think from memory, go through people at one point for pit exits at Gold Coast as well, because that's an easy one, because the pit lane very much, the only thing separating from the racetrack is a yellow line. It's very easy to trip over that and go a little wide. But yeah, there was quite a lot of discussion coming out of last weekend, and I know a few people that went and collated evidence. What they did with it, I don't know. Whether it was submitted anywhere, I don't know. But the other thing I will pick up on, because I've been sitting after the last few laps, and the first time I did it, I was convinced my game had broke. I get the impression that Lockie Lock is trying to one-stop this race, because we won't catch much of it now that he's through turn 1. But there's lifting and coasting, and then there's what Lockie Lock's been doing. He's been, he basically gets to the turning point for turn 1 and lifts off there and coasts the entire way down to the braking zone for turn 2. That's some pretty heavy fuel saving.
Yeah, that's a huge fuel saving.
So that leads me to suggest that he's trying to push this out to lap 31.5.
Yeah.
Would be the halfway point.
Well, I'll tell you what. The bit that I'm sort of worried about with this as well is that where he is right now. Yes, he's 12th on the road, so he's making some pretty reasonable lap time. He's doing 16 zeros last time around, so he's making a reasonable effort here. But at what cost? Has he done the math already? Has it already been worked out that logically you can't make it on one, that you can make it on one stop, but you have to get it absolutely spot on the money and drive to the fuel number you're doing? Like, if you're Corey McFarlane out in front, I would have thought by now that you're probably considering coming in, because it was around lap 29 was the half distance mark in the race for the development series, because it was a mid-50 sort of lap race. There was a yellow flag briefly there as well at turn number 1 and 2, which has now been cleared. But yeah, has he done the math already and worked out, well, okay, can I actually get to that one? Is there a point in even trying? Because what's happening with everybody else out in front, the pace is so hot, I would have expected by now these guys that are out in front, they would have been in.
Well, yeah, so from our best lap moving file of a 12.8, his last lap through, and that will just actually update, so we'll get this for this lap.
13.9.
Comes through 13.9, so been 13.9 for the last couple of laps. See, the way these guys are driving still, obviously they're off pace, but I get the vibe from the guys at the front that they're going to do something in the region of a one stop. If not, they're pushing into they're pushing into two stop, but that second stop kind of being a nothing much stop at all. Because they're past lap 25, they're not halfway yet. There's still a few more laps to go, and definitely the way that math works, you can still end up with a 10-lap third stint technically. But there's nothing to suggest from the guys at the front, which is then baffling in and of itself, because the guys at the front have been running the exact same amount of laps as Locke, have in theory burnt through the same, if not arguably a bit more fuel, because generally going quick requires a bit more fuel. I know there is edge cases for that. I know plenty of guys that do the same pace as everyone else, but somehow burn through way more fuel, and people that can do the same pace and burn less tyres. But if these guys at the front aren't having to back off to that degree to save fuel, it almost suggests to me that it's less of a purely strategy-based thing for Locke. It's almost as if he didn't put enough fuel in the car to begin with, and he's having trying to make that up.
Maybe. Yeah, that's the only other interesting part of that equation as well, is exactly how that's going. But I'll tell you what is an interesting equation. The margin out in front has been ebbing and flowing for a little while. It was down to about 1.8 seconds at one stage. It's just gone back up to 2.2. And at one stage, Corey had it out to nearly 4 seconds over Kurt Stenberg. So that's now starting to close back up. I think that Corey may have actually gone into a little bit of a fuel recovery mode here. That's allowing Stenberg to catch back up. Williams is now starting to get back in touch again. Tara's still glued to the rear of Will Devonish, and all these drivers that are on screen here are in 13s. McFarlane was in 13.8. All these drivers were sort of a mid time to sort of mid 13. Stenberg was a 14.3 last time around, so I think even he might even be lifting, coasting, or maybe he even made a slight mistake. All right, yellow flag down here in the final sector.
Darren Longman.
It's Darren Longman who's on the inside of the course here. And in fact, we have got our first callers on pit road, and they are Steve Warwick and Mitchell Steele-Alston. And I would have thought for a minute that Longman may have gone into the lane, but in fact he has continued around. And
but
now
also
going to be lapped.
Kurt Stenberg has come in as well.
All right, so that's an interesting point in all of this argument as well, is that Kurt Stenberg has now pulled the trigger. He's realised that maybe it is a little bit of time to get in. So this would be definitely a two-stopper from here. We would have to have a little splash and dash somewhere along the line. And he comes in and pits in front of Steve Warwick.
Got a few others in as well, actually. Foley's just coming into the lane. As is, I did see one other who I think I was actually see in the lane soon. Yeah, I think it definitely I was now starting to plan their way through things. Foley, I think, is the only other one on this lap through. Locke still continues on, and I think he's still going to be lifting at turn 1. But yeah, just a couple of guys in now. So I think this is the canary in the coal mine. I think some of these guys, the early callers. And I'm interested to see how those in the respective battles respond. The obvious one we've got to keep an eye on is that lead battle. Stenberg now being the first one in of that pack. But Foley was in a little train of his own from memory as well, sort of at the back end of the top 10. The likes of the Ryan Smiths and both the Lukes as to what that does for them. But yeah, things are going to start to get a little bit more lively over the next few laps.
Yeah, well, interesting will be to see what happens with the response from Corey McFarlane. He's gone around again. So he's definitely, and what was his lap time last round? It's a 14.2. Devonish as well, 14.2. Aiden Williams now pulls the trigger. He comes in from position number 2. So that leaves a margin in front, 5.6 seconds McFarlane to Devonish, but they basically did near identical lap times last time around, and even Noah Turra, throw him in there as well. All right, so check this out, 14.284 for McFarlane, 14.279 for Devonish, 14.298 for Turra. So basically all within, you know, a half a thousandth of each other, or half a hundredth, I should say, sorry, of each other, in terms of the overall lap times. And that margin is starting to shrink a little bit on this lap, so Devonish has got a little bit of time back. He's gained about a tenth and a half over McFarlane. He'll just be in the background of the shot there, towing Turra along with him. Now, can they extend this out? Can they actually get to the half distance point? I would have thought if you can get to the half distance point, you're doing pretty well. And, you know, you're going to have a really challenging sort of second half of the race to deal with, depending on what happens with, you know, how everything falls, how safety cars fall, and how all sorts of other, you know, things come to be. I'll tell you what, though, everybody else behind them, though, are probably going for the same strategy. So McFarlane, Devonish, Turra, Newing, who's found his way up into 4th, Murrell into 5th, Speck and Smith 6th and 7th, and then Locke 8th. I think these guys are all sort of playing the same cards. It's just that somehow or another McFarlane has managed to do it much better than everybody else at the moment, because he's of course leading the race. But at the moment he is bleeding a lot of time. The time at the front is coming down all the while as he continues to try and just eke out. I think it's got to be a fuel-driven number, right? And the problem for him is you've got to, you said that the distance is it's 31 and a half laps is the half distance mark, but unfortunately pit stops don't work like that. So you've got to work out, where do you go? Do you go at the end of 31, or do you try and push it and get to the end of 32 if you really want to go the half distance thing? It could be crucial. In fact, he's actually in. He's in at the end of 30, so he's pushed it as far as he can go and makes it, comes up a little bit short. Devonish goes around again. So did Noah Turra go with him?
He did.
He did. So they've both gone round again. So that's crucial in this little episode. What about these two on screen here, Murrell and Newing? That's the next two we're interested in. Sorry, that's the next two that we're interested in. And one of them pull a trigger. Newing pulls the trigger. Murrell goes again. So this is the critical part of the night here now. And because Newing is in, Speck has to go around again. He can't double. If he double stacks behind his teammate, he would be severely punished.
Yeah, I've just been sitting here, just watching the last corner, the last 3 laps, just getting an idea of who's coming in and who isn't. I think Stenberg and Stenberg being in as early as he was, he's praying for a safety car at this point. I think that's the way he gets a competitive end to this race. Same for Aiden Williams. He was in about the same time as well. He's in a lap later. I think even then, the guys being now, you're going to struggle. It's going to be pretty marginal, to be fair, and maybe the difference is for those guys is they can pin a lap earlier because they don't have to do an out lap, but you don't use full amount of fuel on an out lap anyway, or over a formation lap, as the 2 CRE cars are both now coming into the lane minus Stern.
Well, you want to know the interesting fact in that statistic as well is that Stenberg coming in a little bit earlier, he's actually got the material gain here now on McFarlane to the tune of 2 positions. So you can see Cox is here in 9th, and then McFarlane is a couple of seconds behind him in 10th place, just as they cross the start-finish stripe before. So that's a huge swing for Kurt Stenberg with the way Corey McFarlane was travelling on that series of outlaps. So as Speck, I can see now coming to the lane in from 4th, and Smith going around again. This is actually going to be kind of crucial now for the CRE pair that came in before. So Devonish and Turra, they're actually parked up in the lane. They've got the front bays, so that's the important thing for them. They're up the front of the field. As Locke, actually, he pulls the trigger. He pulls the trigger and comes in as well. So he's a fraction early. But what does this do for Kurt Stenberg? He's at the final corner now. He's going to jump them all here, I think. And he's going to be out and gone, potentially, before all of this happens. So coming across the stripe now, it is going to net him a material gain. Yes, it is. He's currently the race leader on effective strategy because of the pit stop sequence. But as you said, Rody, he's going to have to be hoping and praying for a safety car at some point to fuel save and get home from here.
Yeah, like unless they left something in the tank in this first stint, I think the way this works out is that Stentenberg isn't the effective leader on strategy. I think
Well, he's doing
strategy. The effective leader and the one that should be the data point they're all comparing themselves to now is Will Devonish or if
McFarlane.
Murrell and Smith come out. Well, because McFarlane pitted a few laps earlier.
Yeah.
He didn't make it halfway. He made it to lap 30.
No, but close enough to halfway as well. But he's going to have to do some really hardcore fuel saving from here, because remember, he was punching out some pretty serious times in the mid part of that first stint, so he would have blown through a little bit of fuel doing so. Right, so Stenberg last time around, he actually did a 12.875 as his personal best, so he was the only man in the 12s last time around, so he realises what he's got to do. He's actually not wasting any time here. He's pushing on with it and trying to build a margin here and actually try and hope that the safety car comes at the right point for him to get in, top off the fuel, and then maybe come out with a fresher set of tyres than everybody else around him. So he's actually looking for a time delta, I think, here, or a delta offset compared to everybody else toward the back end of this race. He's just got to have the cards fall his way, and then it'll come to him. So that's all a hope strategy here. This is probably the first of the runners that's at the true half distance point here, with Igmanis coming in from 10th. Actually, the ones that are ahead of him there, I think I saw Scott Murrell in as well. Ryan Smith, I think, might have been in the lane as well. So they've actually come in at the half distance point as well. There you go. Murrell leaving. In actual fact, Murrell jumping Ryan Smith in all of that too. So that as they leave. So these guys have pitted on the true half distance mark, and they have got a little bit fresher boots compared to everybody else around them. Murrell comes out in front of Luke Speck there. Oh, did he get the wall there on the exit turn number 2? No, turn number 1, sorry?
For Murrell, let me go back and have a quick look. Yeah, I was just trying to have a look at where Locke was in all this. We know he was fuel saving make at the halfway. He did pit at the halfway. Yeah, he did just nick the wall slightly, Murrell. He was lucky. I think he bounced off the wall perhaps before the gap in the wall, so he just came in on a deflecting angle and pinged off it.
Yep.
Because I've seen a few guys run along that wall and then get caught out by the dip in the wall and then get spun off. I think he was quite lucky though. But yeah, it's interesting the way that played out, because I doubt I'm going to get him to bring him in for an interview, but I want to before he disappears tonight, I kind of want to ask what happened in this first stint, because he's had a fuel save to do the exact same amount of mileage as his two teammates ahead of him that basically pushed the entire way. I'm still baffled about how that quite works out.
Yeah, me too.
But at least very much in theory he's in a good position. But he's also one, I think, at his end of the field, he probably wants a safety car.
Yeah. Well, there's actually a little bit of something I want to show you going on here. These two didn't quite time it all that well. Cam Rutledge and Daniel Cox, they're teammates. They're pitting together, and well, I'm not sure if there's a double stack going on. There very may well be, because they're not side by side in the pit bay, which you can do and get away in this game. But I don't think there was some very good communication in there between these two chaps for this one. And nope, Coxie did not make it in, and that's a double stack. So that is the cardinal sin of racing there. But in essence, the field has been officially cleansed. So everybody is through. Cam's actually just been lapped by the race leader, Kurt Stenberg. This group here, I tell you what, they all came into the pits within a couple of laps of each other, and they have all found each other, but they find themselves 16.2 seconds in arrears of Kurt Stenberg, who is blazing on here and going for that two-stop strategy. I tell you what, last time out, two fastest laps back-to-back for him, 12.667 followed by 12.742, so pushing on with it, and definitely this is going to add an interesting element to this race. I'm trying to work out here if McFarlane's sort of backing up the pack a little bit just to give a bit of room to Stenberg here, or if they're genuinely gone into a fuel-saving situation, because they're all in the 14s, this quartet at the moment. And it's just a matter of who wants to pull the trigger on who and when.
Yeah, I think looking at it, I've got one time to compare it to because Cam was in the pit lane for the last lap. The pit lane delta time, I think was I was hearing, and it's not far off. It's somewhere in the region of 70 seconds. That's what Stenberg's going to have to find over the rest of these guys for the rest of the race to come back anywhere near them, because at this point, he's not pitting from here right now. If he pits from here right now,
He falls down
He's
to
dropping
10th.
out behind. Oh, yeah, I think even worse than 10th. He drops out. Well, it won't be a full stop to be
Where
fair,
these
so it won't be
guys are,
20
we're
seconds.
watching these guys at the moment. He'll drop out around
yeah.
Steve Warwick. But mind
Yeah.
you, Rhodey, the thing to probably remember as well is that it's probably going to be a bit of a shorter fill for
It will be,
Stenberg as well as the tyres.
I needed to do them. I didn't need to process the math on exactly how much of that is stop time versus travel time. But even then, yeah, he's probably going to have to give himself probably a 30-40 second window, which he's getting towards quite quickly, I will note. So he might be able to. It would be something to effectively cancel out a second stop just through driving. But given that McFarlane, we mentioned he went 3 laps short, so he's going to have to save a bit. Williams went short, he's going to have to save a bit. Devonish and Turra probably did some saving during that stint, so they're probably not going to be pushing it 10 tenths either. I don't know. It's a safety car is going to lock it in, I think. But at this point, I think it's really, really, really marginal as to whether this is a one-stop race or a two-stop race.
Yeah, for these guys here, I mean, they've all made their bed, and same with Stenberg, who plays another fastest lap. I think, tell you what, if Kurt gets out to around about a 30-odd second margin, I think he's probably going to have enough in hand to not only be able to come in and get the stop done, but if he comes out behind this group of cars, he's going to be able to mow them down. He'll be able to pass them because he'll be so much faster than these guys that have got worn tyres and are in the process of fuel saving, and he'll have no worries at all. So that's where the gig is at here, and the question for Stenberg is, if you're going to come in and do that stop, I think you probably want to try and do it around about lap 50. If you can get out to 30 seconds or so by lap 50, which at this stage is looking increasingly likely, he's in the game.
Yeah, and like not only that, even if he drops to the back of them, the way this field is currently set up, there is an 18-second gap, give or take, between 5th and 6th.
Yeah.
So he could drop out into clean air. I think the only stuff he's going to have to worry about is there is some lap cars in that. But as by looking at the law, they aren't going to be a big impedance for him. They'll still be present, but they won't be a huge impedance for him. He's going to have probably the best run as things sit right now. Things can change from now, but as things sit right now, he's got a perfectly clean bit of air to drop into.
No, that's right. And actually, that's the battle we're looking at the moment as he sets another fastest lap. So that's Foley in 6th place with Luke Newing, and then Mitchell Steele-Allison behind him. And then the next one's actually Scott Murrell, who's not even in the picture at the moment. He's actually about 5 seconds back of the rear of the aqua and black Mustang Steele-Allison. You might see Murrell just start to emerge into the back of the shot as we go down to turn number 11. Yeah, he was just starting to get into the back of frame there in what was it, 9th place for him. And actually, here he is. He's actually rounded up Daniel Cox in all of this. So already positions 14 on back have been lapped once, in the case of Darryl Callaghan twice. And then Steve Warwick will be the next one that the race leader Stenberg comes across, but he is blazing a trail well and truly at the moment. And we're going to have to keep an eye on what he is up to. I'll tell you what, Rody, the bit that sort of is worrying me at the moment, as we see Newing now going for a pass on Brett Foley, is a little bit of willingness down there at turn number 3. But that puts the number 17 up into 6th place. The bit that sort of frustrates me, I think, a little bit, Rody, is watching that the conga line of 4 cars with 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th, and that they were all sort of just content to sort of sit there for a little bit and not sort of worry about too much, although I think Will Devonish might be having something to say about that because he's pulled the trigger on Aidan Williams and Noah Turra looking to go around the outside here. So I think all of them actually sit together in the chat, so there might actually be a bit of communication here going, all right guys, we need to start pushing on here a little bit because otherwise we're going to be in a bit of trouble, and let's see what happens this time around, because again, they're all in the 14s. Williams with the slowest lap, he was in the 15s out of this little group. But what can Will Devonish do? Is he going to put a little bit more pressure on the back of the 55 and either force him to ratchet the pace up a little bit or to give way because the margin is starting to get into dangerous territory now?
Yeah, I think it's either that or perhaps from where Will and Noah are at least. I think there's 3 about the 4 of them. I think at this point, if nothing else comes into this race, like even if they pick the pace up, it's not going to do much for them. I think at this point, they're all fighting over 2nd. And I think at this point, that's just clicked for Devonish and Turra, that they're fighting over 2nd. And so saving isn't going to do much for them. They're not going to win the race off this.
No,
Only means they can still run out of fuel.
Here we go.
But as things said, Devonish and Tara have got the most fuel, have got the freshest tyres of this 4-pack. They might as well start using them.
Yeah, they've got about 3 lap offset, so there we go. So finally, Will had to gnaw away a little bit there from turn 9, 10 onwards, but he gets that job done around the outside, but it's not finished yet. He's got the inside now for turn number 1 as they go through here. So they've got to give themselves a little bit of room, but he will have the high ground when it comes to turn 2 to try and take that apex corner away. Tara's going to try and go with him here, so this is a block pass effectively for Devish. He's got to block off Tara, and then you've got McFarlane who's got to go there as well. Oh, then there's a little bit more willingness between the two of them side by side here. McFarlane's trying to fight it with Noah Tara, so this is what, not only what Stenberg wants, he wants these guys to fight, but he also wants them to be a little bit slower so he can keep eking out the margin. And again, they were in the 1 minute 14s and 15s last time around. Stenberg was at a 12.9, so that's a huge gain yet again. It's gaining better part of a 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap. But now that Devonish is through, can he start to take this train a little bit closer to Kurt Stenberg over the course of the next couple laps or so and start to stabilise that margin to the point where it becomes irrelevant? That's the key here. If they can stabilise this margin, then it becomes a bit more of a difficult prospect for the number 1.
Yeah, I was thinking it through, and yeah, like a safety car does perhaps play into his hands here, but also it depends on when the safety car comes out as well. There could still be a way for this group of 4 to try and swing themselves back into it if Stenberg is past the safety car is past the start finish line by the time the safety car would come out, because if they race hard enough the way they're racing, McFarlane has probably recognised the same thing. He doesn't want to take this lying down though. He's going to keep trying. If they cause a safety car in a position that slightly disadvantages Stenberg, but especially is in a position where they can dive straight into the pit lane, I think even in the position of Devonish and Tara, well, I don't know, to be fair. These guys could pit, but at the same time, all these guys need is a safety car, and they're probably good to go.
That's right. Well,
they're not going to be on tyres as good as Stenberg, but they'll have wiggle room. Well, and depending on where Stenberg pits and comes out, it might not. There's still a lot to go for this. Still a lot on the table.
Well, I tell you what. It made it even worse because for Aiden Williams, he had a game freeze on that last lap. He actually dropped off the back of the pack. He actually lost a complete 10 seconds to that group. So there's now daylight between him and the other 3 cars there. He's actually just coming across a stricken Darryl Callaghan at the final corner here, who stays off the racing line. And I'm not sure if he's going to continue. He's going to continue on here. So for Williams now, it's a case of, well, if I want to get back to that group that's just up the road from me, you can see them just off in it. They've just gone round turn 1 in the distance there. He's actually got a fair bit of work to do. So he's now dived into a mid-13. But I'll tell you what, the other thing too is the other 3 cars in front of him, they've also just dived into the mid-13s.
So add that driver to the list of drivers that would perhaps benefit from a safety car.
Yes.
Whether it be to pit to commit to a 2-stop and try and do something with it from there, but even just to catch the train in front now at this point. Yeah, I know there's some discussions going around at one point on the how much can I pay X driver to guarantee a safety car. I don't think it's even the window of that, but yeah, it's a safety car would definitely throw a lot of things out the window, or especially those things in the window for guys at this point. But realistically, the chances to cause one, I mean, we've got a pretty tight battle between Foley and Steele Allison, but they're indirect teammates. Would expect that would go nuclear. It's really just this lead battle, which is McFarlane not really taking it lying down that Will's past him, and Tara should have been past him, but yeah, McFarlane switched on. No. So Tara's probably got the juice still to get past McFarlane, but McFarlane's, he's at this point, even if he won't make the rest of this race out, even if he has to pit at some point for tyres or fuel or whatever, he doesn't want to accept lying down.
No, exactly. Well, I think now that he's actually sitting behind Will Devonish, he will get a benefit of a bit of lift and coast here as well. He is actually not the driver that's out in front creating the pocket of air for the other drivers to drive into behind. He's now the one that's becoming the beneficiary of the draft that the number 15 is putting out there at the moment. But he's just got to be very mindful, though, that if he gives up too much of an inch, that Tara will take a mile. It's a very fine line to tread there at the moment when you're in the middle car in a 3-way sandwich with the better part of 20 laps still to go here. So it's a long way. It's a long way for all 3 of these drivers to go, to be perfectly honest with you. The gap has, it's not stabilised, but it's definitely not coming down at the same rate that it was. Sorry, not going up at the same rate that it was, I should say. So 2 or 3 laps ago, it was 26 seconds. It's now 28.2. It's not going up at the rate of 1.5 seconds a lap. It's probably lucky to be going up about 3/4 of a second a lap. So it is stabilising somewhat. I'll tell you what, that's getting awfully close. That's basically NASCAR style, coming down the front straight between McFarlane and Devonish, giving him a little nudge there, getting right up under the rear wing, and then getting through turn 1, and then literally backing right off completely before turn number 1 and 2. So he had enough margin in the braking zone there, but he got such a good run off of turn number 1 up the final corner. I mean, why would you not go through and use something like that and just really take as much, I guess, well, it's not so much taking the piss, but it's taking as much, you know, of a fuel save sip as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think just thinking of Stenberg's position, I think he's going to be happy that McFarlane's continuing to apply a bit of the blowtorch here. But also, with where Stenberg's pace changes are at, I think he needs to. Something weird there. I think what he needs to do is he needs to probably start looking at getting in for a stop, because he's pushing really hard at this point. He's picked up, I think it's 2 track cuts in the last 3 or 4 laps.
There was one on the last lap as well.
One on the last lap, and there was one I think a couple of laps prior as well. He's been pushing really hard the last couple of laps. I think his tyres are, like I did mention, that sort of 10 to 20 lap on window of good tyre, but I think if he's going to wait too long to try and make use of that, he's not going to have any tyre life at the other end, and more importantly, I think he's going to hurt himself. I think he needs to get in the next, probably, we put it for lap 30, cutting it in half would be about lap 45, lap 46. He needs to be in probably the next lap or 2.
Yep.
Because I think he's gotten about as much as he's probably going to get out of this run, and needs himself a bit of life at the back end of this race. Yeah,
he's starting to come across the lap traffic as well, and for the record, he is on 3 track strikes, so he's getting close to the limit. Normally the limit is 3, and you're on your final warning. For the longer distance races, it has been given an extra strike for everybody, just for you know, in the interest of trying to make sure that everybody finishes. So he has got 1 more warning left before he then is on a final warning. So if he racks up 2 more, he will tour the lane, and that would be disastrous for the champion. That would put him out of running. So he is coming across some of the lap traffic, and Callaghan's been pretty good, and he does the right thing. Again, same thing as he did last time out. Moves over to the left there, lets Stenberg by. So the traffic's being kind to him, but the important thing for him is that you don't normally want to be trying to pass the traffic. You want to sort of be into the pits when the traffic is, you know, you're getting onto the back of the traffic. You don't want to be spending too much time negotiating it. Otherwise, you just lose too much time. Hand over fist to the drivers that are behind you at the moment. So 30.5 seconds, and it's that's actually the first time I've now seen it go back the other way. It was 30.5, it's now 30.4, but that was traffic assisted for that margin that shrunk a little bit on that occasion there. So for Stenny, I think he's probably going to do about another 3 to 4 laps, and then I think he'll be in the sweet spot to really sprint hard all the way home.
I think some of these guys as well, I think it's going to perhaps influence his everybody wants to pit as well, because he's going to want to go ahead of the guys that would be 40 seconds on the road behind him, but don't get trapped in these guys and put them in position as well. He's going to. I would hope he is starting to think this through, because he's going to have to get a clear gap from the cars he's racing. He's still pretty good for. He might actually just slot in behind or ahead of Adrian Williams, depending on how long that stop goes for. But actually, I will say on that topic as well, Ewing and Foley seem to have picked up the pace a little bit as well. That gap's been coming down slightly compared to the top 3. The other thing is, he's going to have to keep an eye on where he drops into, because you don't want to be dropping into this same sort of traffic again where you're trying to put really, really fast laps on with those tyres. He's got pretty lucky there. Logden's seen him coming and has parted way for him. But the next car he's going up to is a car he hasn't yet lapped, so it's maybe a car that is considering being lapped in this one, is Ryan Smith, and he's actually very distantly the back of that really sort of that second train of cars that starts with Ewing and Foley.
Yes, so Foley we were looking at before, he's actually said start to pick up the pace a little bit now. He's actually moved away from Mitchell Steele Allison. There he is there. He's got about, he's just made a little mistake there going into turn number 3. And Steele Allison himself now starting to come under a bit of pressure from Scott Murrell. They've got a pretty decent margin over Spec, though, who's the last car inside the 10, and you said Ryan Smith not far off being lapped by Kurt Stenberg, although all these drivers that Stenberg is in the process of lapping, they will get their lap back in the next couple of moments or so, because Stenberg will have to tour the lane for the second time to take on fuel and put on another set of boots and then go again. It's just a matter of when he elects to pull that trigger. And the Lachlan, whoops, as Foley's made, that's a fair old mistake there for Brent Foley, and he's actually in, so that's a bit of a surprise. I wasn't expecting him to come in for a second stop this early, but I tell you what, he made a hell of a mistake there coming out of the final corner. So maybe the rear tyres just as you said, already overused them a little bit. Taking,
yep.
Tell you what, took a bit of liberties with the pit entrance there. We might have to do a little bit. Yeah. We might have to do something about that for next year. That's smile, Mr. Foley. You've been caught on corner cutting camera.
But what he actually did there was where he bobbled and then had to then check up to get in the pit lane. He's actually indirectly helped Scott Murrell and in practice actually hindered his teammate in Steele Allison, because Steele Allison went right behind, Foley had to check up, and in the end Murrell just went, yep, sweet, thank you, and passed on straight through. But yeah, from Foley's point of view, if he was playing on 2 stopping, yeah, this is about the time. I mean, this is about the time I'd be setting Stenberg in, because it cuts the remaining race in half pretty much. And it gives him a chance to then get the highs back up to heat, so then he gets a 13-lap run from here. And so Foley will have a good run. He's just probably expecting. I don't quite know what he's expecting from his end of things. I'm not sure who he's seeing as a competitor right now at this point, given he's going to drop out. Well, he's 40 seconds behind Steele Allison, who he's running pretty happily with. I don't think he's got 40 seconds worth of pace difference in the remaining 15 laps of this race. So I don't know. I don't know what this means to do Foley. I think his next challenges are Steve Warwick and Lockie Lock. He'll get Lockie Lock, who's probably committed to a 1 stop, but I'm not sure he'll go much further forward than there.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Stenberg's now got this margin out to just over 30 seconds. It's 33.5 to be precise over Will Devonish, so this is now the dangerous territory. This is the lap that I mentioned that probably would be the ideal situation to come in and leave yourself enough time if you did come out behind the likes of Devonish, McFarlane and Turra, that you would have some time to use those tyres to your advantage. I mean, the more time out in front you gain over your rivals, the better position, the less work you have to do when it comes to catching up to them. But by the same token, the longer you go on, the more those tyres are becoming more and more and more worn, and your lap time starts to diminish. Although Stenberg hasn't been doing too bad a job. His last time around was still at 12.7, so the pace is definitely still there. He's using it up while he's got it. It's starting to shrink a little bit again now, so he's lost about 0.2 this lap, so there is some ebbing and flowing as it all happens, but you don't want to leave it too long and then have too few laps to actually make this work. So he actually goes around again at lap 50, so let's keep an eye on that one and see how all that plays out. So we know he is leading this race. Will Devonish is second on the road, and he's only got about just on a second margin over Corey McFarlane behind, who himself has got a similar margin back to Noah Turra. So this is the fight for we believe this is the fight for the remainder of the roster, and we believe that Stenberg probably will have enough in hand to catch these guys and pass them, but he will have to get through the 3 of them if he wants a podium finish after his second stop. Aidan Williams has started to close that margin down a bit, so he was 10 seconds in arrears of that group of cars. He's got it down to 8, but again, it's a very fine line to be treading, and he's pulling the trigger now too, so he's had enough. He's going to come in and get a set of tyres here and just realise that he needs to finish the race, that there wasn't any point in trying to pussyfoot around. You may as well try and do something a little bit different. Luke Newing will go through to 5th place as a result of that. With Williams in the pits, which means that he falls down to 6. Scott Murrell in 7th. He'll pick up a spot now as well, and then you will have Mitchell Steele Allison behind him. He'll grab 1 too. There's Williams, who now falls down to 8th. He's going to lose a further spot now to Luke Speck, who's from 9th, and Ryan Smith, who actually is technically 1 lap down. And actually there is Stenberg. Back a shot. You saw it just then. Lap 51. So I wasn't far off, Rhodey. I was a lap out.
Yeah, well, actually, what gives an important bit of information is Williams. He was about 8 seconds a rear of Will Devonish when he came into the lane. He's come out 51 seconds a rear of Will Devonish, so he's lost about 40-45 seconds, I think, assuming, well, given he's pitted about the same time, I assume Kurt's been for a similar amount of time. So Kurt's going to come out with probably 10 seconds off the lead pack.
Yep.
With 12 laps to go.
Yeah, so that's how it all sits at the moment. So Devonish has gone through. These leading group of three have gone through. Stenberg's emerging from the pits now. So that was actually it was a 40-second transit time through the lane. A net loss. So tell you what, he had 34-second margin. He's going to be about 10 seconds in arrears of the leader by the time he gets back up to speed, and he's going to have the better part of 12 laps to do it in. So I'll tell you what, he's going to have a very, very fast race car and a fresh set of boots here. He might have just pulled the strategy master stroke on this one.
He has, but well, potentially, but he's got a lot of work to do. Still very much the ball is in his court, because the way things go, all they have to do is just tide along. We're pretty confident at this point, even with a slight push at the back half of this, that Devonish, McFarlane and Tara can all make it to the end from here. Yeah. All they're going to do is keep running, just keep themselves on track, and when it comes to it, present a half-decent defence, and it's still potentially theirs.
So the distance between Tara and Stenberg is the length of that run from turn 10 to turn 11. So that's how far in arrears he is. You'll start to see him probably just come into the back of the shot as in a few minutes' time as the Tara goes around the final corner. So Stenberg will start to be a bit of a picture. There he is. So it's not that far away. It's the length of the front straight, basically, from Stenberg all the way to Will Devonish. So I did say it was going to be around about 10 seconds. It's 9.3.
So a slightly smaller gap to work with than we thought, and just for reference, the leaders currently doing
13s,
low 13s into mid 13s. Stenberg, that last lap through won't count, but we know he was running up into the 12s. He's very much in the window that he can do this with time to spare.
Yep.
But we can see. That said, I can see, just looking at the timing, that I think Will's starting to respond to this again, because he is starting to pull clear now of Corey McFarlane.
Yeah, he certainly is starting to pull clear of Corey at the moment. So he's got the margin out to 1.8, and I think this has also been Corey just having to try and fuel save a little bit there, because of course he did come in a couple of laps before the half distance mark, and then there's now some traffic in the way. You've got Brenton Foley, who's not going to give up anytime soon, but he is of course a lap down. So too Lockie Lock, so that's an inter-team discussion there. There's also Mitchell Steele-Allison, who's just leaving the lane as well, so he has stopped for a second time, but he's in a battle with Brenton Foley. That's going to have to be mindful of as well. And there he is. He's just come out right smack in front of Corey McFarlane. Oh, I tell you what, that is the mother of all rejoins there. And McFarlane, great evasive action to get through, but he did lose out in that little battle to Brenton Foley. So that's a net gain for Foley over Steele-Allison. That's actually a pretty handy margin at the end of the day. And these two in front now, so Foley and Locke, they need to push on. They need to really push hard here. Oh, mistake from Foley. Speaking of pushing, he was wrong side of the curb at turn 6 there, and very nearly rolled the 074.
So he's going to have to let Will through at some point here, but he still wants to try and get past Locke as well.
No, that's right. So the race leader now starting to get up onto the back of Brenton Foley. Blue flags in effect. You can see it there on the top of your timing totem where it says 1 hour and 7 minutes and 45 seconds of racing completed. All safety car free to this point, which is absolutely amazing. All things considered, there was 3 of them in the development series race 7 days ago, with a field size that wasn't that much larger than this one. So again, the margin stable at 1.8 seconds, first to second place. Noah Tara hasn't made any impression. Stenberg's made the biggest one so far. He chopped a huge advantage out of the race leader at that point. So he's now got the margin to under 8 seconds with the better part of 9 laps remaining in this one. So there's a moment. Could this be a safety car moment? It's Luke Newing. He's out of 5th place. There's a tyre that just went flying on the Dare Ice coffee machine, but it happened so quickly, I don't think it was enough for a safety car. I'm just trying to work out what on earth happened here. I think he might have he's had a moment and hit the wall. We will go and have a look at this one on the replay, actually, because this one is a self-inflicted incident. He was running so well up until this point, and he's just had a moment, an easy moment by the looks of things, out of turn number 2, smacked the fence, and a wall went flying. Yeah, there we go. Just turned hard right, and the front right corner departs company with the 17.
Yeah, I'm not saying he was doing that to cause a safety car, but he was. He needed to be a bit parked a little bit on the racing line. I think that's the reason it wasn't. But yeah, that was a easy one to do through turn 2, just to light the rear up and get a little bit of a lazy spin going. And by the time you catch it, you're facing the wrong way, if not in the fence.
Yeah.
Real unfortunate for Newing is having a good little run there.
Yeah, only the second retirement as well. So he's out and all things done and dusted. So that will elevate everybody in the running order that was behind him in 5th place. It actually elevates Murrell into 5th place. I tell you what, he's had to talk about quiet achievers. Scott Murrell in all of this. Oops, sorry, we just switched him off his camera. He's going to get annoyed with that. Scott Murrell in all things has just gone about his business, one-stop strategy. He's basically been, I wouldn't say nowhere all night, but we haven't spotted him up until this point. But it's all come up a full house for him at the moment.
Yeah, I think strategy-wise, he's just basically just been following the top 3 at the moment. The difference is he's just maybe not quite been there on the outright pace. But the important thing was he got to the half-distance mark with acceptable. Well, I mean, it's probably more than acceptable. We'll call it acceptable pace, and he's able to crack on again. And like he's got a 5-6 second window over Luke Speck, and I don't see that necessarily going anywhere anytime soon. And even if it does, he's got 7 laps or so, which there's time in that he can manage that out. But even then, still a top 6 finish if that does go that way. But top 5 is a really good run for Scotty. Absolutely.
Well, now it's going to start to get interesting. Stenberger's on the back of Noah Tara here with 6 laps and a little bit of change remaining here, and the margin down to 7.1 seconds. It hasn't played the way that he was hoping. His last time out was a 12.9, but Tara did a 14.0. So with a bit of luck for Stenberg, this should be if he gets a good exit off of the final corner here, this should be done and dusted by turn number 2. He's got Brenton Foley in the way as well, who does have to concede because he is a lap down to both drivers behind him, but he knows that there's a very fast group of cars and he will have to push on and make sure that he stays well and truly clear of this. Will Stenberg be down the inside in a flash, thinks about it, and now pulls the trigger. Foley gets out of the way, beautifully done by the 074, and it's an easy pass for Stenberg at the end of the day. So predicted that one, over and done with at turn number 2, and 2 more cars to go for Stenberg. Margin at 6.7, and Devonish has extended his advantage over McFarlane to 2.3 seconds now, and Lockie Lock has been passed as well. Bit of fistfuls of opposite Lock there. I tell you what, the champion just showing how it's done in a supercar in the Generation 3 era. Knows how to catch these things, knows how to drive them very well. He's got a bit of lap traffic to contend with, and then McFarlane is the next one up, and he is giving it all here.
Yeah, I think it's still, and he'll know this himself. It's still very marginal. He's on pure numbers, he probably has the pace to catch these guys, but he's going to actually string them together. He's going to have the concentration there. He's going to have the car behave the way he wants it to. He's going to have the traffic behave the way he wants it to. Yeah. Locke, I expect, is going to get out of the way fairly expediently, but at the same time, Locke is now in a battle with Steele Allison. He only needs to come up the road, and he's not going to want to give up too much. At the end of the day, those lap cars still have a right to be on the track, still have their own races they're running, and they're not going to want to completely inconvenience their own races just to satisfy somebody who is challenging for the lead. The rules do favour the guy challenging for the lead, but in practice things aren't always that clear. But Will has responded. I think the question now at this point is, I don't know how much saving Will did. The only people that know how much saving Will did to get through his first stint are in Will's camp. I don't know whether in Will pushing like he is now, whether he has a price to pay at the back end of this or not, because if he doesn't, he's looking pretty good right now. But if he does, he's in trouble and he just isn't showing it yet.
No, that's right. You don't want to, it's like a game of poker at the moment. You don't want to show your hand. He's lifted his pace out in front. Like his fastest lap of the race is a 12.8. Last 2 laps he's done a bit of 13.0 and a 13.2, right? So he's not exactly slow. He's been at a very consistent pace. He's been all things very, very considered. He's dug deep when he needed to. McFarlane's actually just gone and done a personal best on the last lap. He's gone and done a 12.8 and cut the margin down quite significantly to Devonish. Like he took a full 6 to 8 tenths of a second out of him last time around. So this is not over yet. There's still a few twists and turns, I think, here in this one. Stenberg's got Steele Allison still to contend with, I think, in the next few seconds or so, who's just up the road, and he's pulling away from Locke here, so that battle is sorted. But I don't want to lose sight of the battle between the leading two at the moment, because McFarlane is almost like he's got a bit of a second wind here. He's done the homework. He's gone and saved a bit of fuel and looked after himself, and now he's starting to push on a bit as well. Is Devonish starting to struggle? Is this the key that McFarlane wants to do to get up there and push Devonish to do something that he doesn't want to do in the closing couple of laps? And is that then the invitation that Stenberg needs, as these two go into combat to then further erode the margin? It's all getting very, very interesting in the closing 3 laps of this race. We're 60 laps into a 63 lap race, and it's gonna get tight at the back end here.
Yeah, I think the way you play the mind games out now is, even if McFarlane has the pace to get past Devonish, and even though he'll be screaming himself, he wants to get that done as soon as possible to negate the risk of Kurt coming and swamping him. I think the mind games at this point, you have to run line soon, you have to run the fastest line for both of those cars. You have to build the margin to the point, or maintain the margin to the point where Kurt cannot get it no matter how hard you fight, and then only that last lap do you scrap like it's the first lap.
No, exactly. So they've got to try and, as you said, build that insurance policy, because if they're just going to fight between the two of them, they need to have enough of a margin in hand, knowing if they go into combat that they're not going to get caught. But the margin to first to third is now 4.8 seconds. Caught 4.5 now. There goes another 3/10. So Stenberg realises what's going on here, and that the time for attack is now. He's now starting to emerge into the back of the shot. He's still got to get through Mitchell Steele Allison, who's doing a remarkable job to push on as long as he possibly can here, but he will be obliged with the blue flags when Stenberg gets within sight of him. I think Stenny would love a little bit of a toe down this front straight here, and there's going to be some traffic to play into this as well. So Darren Lognan's the next man that's going to go, he'll go a second lap down if the leaders catch him before the end of this race. I'll tell you what, Will Devonish will be screaming on the radio to his race engineer here, trying to make sure that that purple Mustang stays out of the way.
He will, yeah. That said, he's got a good bit of a little bit of extra insurance back there as well. Still Allison, who's, as we mentioned, is in his own battle with Locke and with Foley. And to be fair,
passed.
He is passed, but still Allison last lap through was a 13.7. He's basically hitting the exact same times as the leaders right now, so you can understand why the last few cars have been pretty apprehensive in letting cars through, because arguably they're quicker than most of the guys that are passing them. But now that he's through, he's got clear air up to the back of McFarlane. But we're coming around now to the start of the last lap, and the gap is still at 4 seconds from race lead.
Well, I'll tell you what, now the gap in front certainly isn't 4 seconds anymore. It's half a second. It is gone. So Devonish is going to have to defend for his life in the final 13 corners of this race. McFarlane was the man in form after winning the last 2 races at Hidden Valley, dominating the event in effect. And now he's got 2.87 kilometres of running to find a way past the former series champion in the 15. He looks to the outside. There won't be a room through turn 1. Devonish will have to cover the line, potentially down into turn 1. Here's a late move from McFarlane. It's a little bit tight there and a little bit of contact. I think that will be okay, because there was a late decision made and Devonish was committed to the corner. Right onto turn 3 we go. They're getting closer to the back of Darren Lognan's Mustang here as they exit 3 and drag race up to turn number 4. Next opportunity is going to be down into the flip-flop at turn 7 and 8, and then the final couple of corners in the complex. The Mustang's out of the way. Oh, that's tight. That didn't give McFarlane the ideal line that he wanted through the flip-flop, so that's one passing spot taken away. Devonish will have to defend the line into the last couple of corners. He's going to have to move it over to the right here. McFarlane might send a bomb, and he goes again at it here, and now there's side contact up to the final complex of corners. Will Devonish fight this one back, or will he look to try and switch around and go from there? McFarlane protects the inside. They rub door panels, and as they come out of the final corner, it's a change position. It's a 55. It's going to be in the front position here, and he will get the win at that stage. And I tell you what, Stenberg probably needed another lap. It needed to be a 64-lap race for Kurt Stenberg to make that one work, but he comes up in third place there after some door banking between the 55 and the 15 in the closing couple of corners. I said that Devonish had to defend it down into turn 11, and he didn't, and he left himself vulnerable.
Yeah, I will say on that, the extra lap I don't think would have necessarily done much for Stenberg. Most of that gain would have been in that last sector, but he gained a second, he gained 2 seconds on the lead two in the last sector. It was all that last sector of battling. That's all it was. So a lap longer maybe wouldn't have necessarily done it because they would have withheld that battle for that lap longer. But look, the defense from Will at turn 1, I think that's probably considered a fair game. He, the McFarlane wasn't far enough alongside, and I know exactly the position Will was in because I've done the same thing to him in the past, where he's just poked the nose up there and said, "Nah, sport, you're not far enough." The pre-planned, well executed, well thought out bomb at the hairpin. I have a feeling that the attitudes are a little less sweet and savoury after that one, but I'm not sure. That was still either way, at least on track. That was a good battle for the win.
Yep, it certainly was. It was going to get tight at the end there. So running through the order, McFarlane, Devonish, Stenberg, Noah Tara 4th. Good result for Murrell 5th. Aidan Williams, he was in that battle at the top of the standing, so he finishes 6th. Speck in 7th. Ryan Smith in 8th. He's already in the shed. So too Steele Allison. Lockie Locke managed to get top 10 there, but he did finish 1 lap down. So everyone from 9th was more than a lap down or so. So for him, that late strategy with running at the pace that he did with the curious case there that didn't sort of go his way. Foley 11th with Rutledge, and then Egmanis, so he had a big fall from grace after starting inside the top 10. Then Cox, Steve Warwick, and Darren Lognan and Darryl Callaghan, and then the 2 retirees, Newing with that really strange exit off of turn number 2, and then Brandon Dostal with the moment that he had going, I actually didn't even see his moment, not even sure what happened. Oh, what's Speck going backwards into the turn fence there? I think he's actually just celebrating the fact that he's actually got a decent result out of that one. As Cox is going round again. I'm not sure what the benefit in that was. You don't get an extra lap back by doing that. But that is after an hour, 18 minutes and 44.7 seconds of racing. Safety car free after the high possibility of a safety car here at this circuit. We've got ourselves a winner, and we had a grandstand finish at the end.
We did, yeah. Just plugging in some points because we're throwing a points on offer for 1 race win tonight, given it is a single race.
Yeah.
It does, as we mentioned earlier, it does and has provided a lot of movement in the points.
Well, we will get to that in a short period of time. I guess Mr. Rohde will have a little bit of a reach out to a couple of drivers there and see if they would like to come for a little chat, because there is a fair bit of things to digest, I think, with all of that. There definitely was a few interesting situations to talk about. There was a few drivers that had their own little private battles that we didn't probably get to capture a lot of on the camera. But Rohde's obviously plugging in the points and that there, and we'll see what happens. But it's good to see that we get a nice little grandstand finish. I like the fact that something different happened in that race. Like, you get a lot of races where a lot of drivers just do sort of the same thing within 2 or 3 laps of each other, and they say to each other, "Oh, okay, well then it makes for boring racing." But then you've got to get the ones like what happened tonight with Stenberg opting to go for that 2-stop strategy, which made it interesting. And all it would have taken is a couple of tenths on 1 lap here, or the traffic to be a little bit kinder there, and or for him maybe to go at lap 50 rather than go at lap 51, and maybe he might have been in that battle. It might have been something a little bit different at the end of the day. But they always say that hindsight is a wonderful thing, but you get a chance to look at what might have been and something to do different next time, but then you can't necessarily apply it to the next time, because the next time might be a little bit different and a bunch of things might not go your way, and then all the things that you spoke about the last time that you could have looked at in hindsight have just gone out the window. So there's plenty of things to discuss in all of those, and then just discard the whole entire lot for next time. So It's that time of the night where we have a little bit of a chat with everybody that has decided to make the journey up to the top step and the second step and the third step of the podium. And for us tonight, that of course was the last round's winner in Corey McFarlane. He's now got 3 on the bounce. So, Rody, I think we should probably start with him.
We probably should, yes. So, Corey, after coming back to the season, not even well, actually just over 3 rounds ago now, technically. Not the best start obviously at Barbagallo, but since then, pretty good run of things, and you've capped it off tonight with another win.
Yeah, it's getting better, getting figuring out the tyres a bit more. Still a bit random at times, but yeah, that was good fun, good track.
Absolutely. Well, we started things off tonight with the shootout, and from memory, your run went pretty well, and you want to talk us through how things went from there?
Yeah, whenever you take the fuel out or the fuel out of the car in this, I just struggled with couldn't get the rear to stay on the ground under brake, so the qual car felt pretty average, but lap was decent. And then I think my game was wigging out in the turn one, and everyone disappeared on my screen. And then when everyone came back, they were in me, so that wasn't ideal. Yeah, no, the rest of the race was pretty good. Bit boring having to save that much tyre and fuel, but that was all right.
I've got to ask as well, actually, with the pitting, because there was clearly some divergence in the single stop strategy. What was the sort of point amongst the collective? And I suppose that you probably sort of read the room or the feeling rather than having to communicate it. What was the sort of point that you guys realised that you might have had to pick up the pace a little bit to give a challenge to Kurt?
I thought he probably was pretty good at like coming out not too far behind us, and I just had a margin in mind of trying to hit a percentage per lap of tyre wear. So I was just sort of bumming around doing that, and I think some others wanted to get on with it, which is fair enough. But yeah, I wasn't really just going to let them get too far away.
All good. Well, next round is our international round, and this year we're going to the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Nice succinct thoughts. All good. Well, great work by yourself tonight, Corey, that you have moved yourself into the top 20 in the standings now with that win, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time at Monza.
Cool, thank you.
Alrighty, moving on down to the second place driver, and while he was very pushy at points in that race, it didn't quite work out to be quite enough. Will Devonish, still a pretty good result in the end.
Yeah, good result, but a bit gutted with that. Yeah, especially losing it on the last corner. So yeah, best result we've had here, so can take that away. But yeah, would have liked that win.
Fair enough. You and Noah, I think, were the only ones that actually managed to get the first stint out to the halfway mark. I think the one question that I had at that point was there any saving related in your stint, or did you guys manage to just meter it out the whole way?
We actually didn't make what we wanted in the first stint, but in different ways. So I didn't make it in tyres because of turn one, lost quite a few positions, so I had to push harder than I wanted. And Noah couldn't make it on fuel. So we actually pitted a lap earlier than we wanted to. And to be honest, that probably sealed our fate, really. But yeah, that second stint was pretty metronomical. We needed to hit fuel and tyre numbers, and we did that. We were actually nailing the fuel number, but yeah, the tyres were the ones that were hurting us.
I will lean in just quickly just to wind the branch a little bit and talk about one of your development drivers. I know he wasn't driving for your team tonight, but Scott Murrell, pretty good run in 5th place as well.
Yeah, he's 5th or 6th, yeah. He's pretty chuffed with himself after that. That's a hard race, and to be in the top 10, yeah, anyone should be proud of that.
Absolutely. Well, same for you then. Your thoughts coming into Monza?
I've been wanting Monza for about 2 years as international round, so even though I didn't vote for it, but yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it. I haven't raced there for probably 3 years. which is weird because it is one of my favorite tracks. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, we'll catch you in a few weeks' time, Will, and great work tonight.
Thank you.
And finally, the one who tried the counter strategy and it almost paid off, but I think either way, Kurt, that was a really well run race.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, look, to be honest, I thought I could have won that race. If I go back and look at all the errors that I made, if I had committed harder to that strategy is the winning strategy every day of the week. We filled up in the middle stop. The first pit stop, we filled it full of fuel and we would have been able to split our fuel a bit better had I not done that. And I probably shouldn't have gone as long as I did, but I was trying to make it. And, well, look, we have a tyre wear disadvantage in this car, so I can't make the laps that other people can make. So I just had to do what I had to do. Especially,
Oh, good.
yeah.
Sorry. Continue your thoughts. Sorry.
I was just going to say, especially when you start 10th, like.
Yeah. Well, that leads into my next question. We all watched that shootout. What happened to the back end of that lap?
The car's just extremely twitchy on low fuel, and this game runs like a piece of garbage, and it's a combination of that. So you can't get sideways and have your game not working properly. So
okay, so I suppose just to clarify, your 150 odd k an hour rallycross pit lane entry, that was the game forcing you into that. That wasn't your decision.
Yeah, it just locked up. So when you're on a side, and it's like, by the time you get it back, you're out of control. So what do you do?
Fair enough. Well, considering the way you started that race, pretty good result at the end of the day. What's your thoughts going into Monza?
Well, I'm really happy. Like, that's the fastest we've been. I've been slow all year. Let's be fucking frank here.
Yeah.
That's the fastest I've been in for a long time. Like that, that's half the reason I committed to that strategy is we actually had car speed. And as Mark Scaife always says, the best strategy is car speed. So I think we've found whatever we were missing, or at least found something that we're missing. And, Monza's not too dissimilar of a track. It's big braking zones, chicanes, whatnot. I mean, I particularly don't think it's that great of a track, but I think that we're probably going to go better there than where we've done at Hidden Valley and at Simmons Plains, because I think we definitely found something tonight to be competitive. I'm not sure what tire we're on there, but I think we're in a lot better position than where we were.
Yeah, we're running softs with a mandatory stop.
We'll probably be a bit weak. I will probably personally be a bit weaker on the softs, but I reckon we've found a bit more of what we were missing the last few rounds. So hoping it's a rebound in pace from here, and hopefully that's fun with the CPSs and we don't have to drive around saving tyres.
Very good. Well, great work by yourself tonight, Kurt, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time at Mondon. Hopefully that pace comes with you.
No worries. Thanks, mate. I'll see you there.
Will do.
Thank you, Rody. Yeah, I do agree with Stenny on that one, that it was one of those nights where, he did have the pace. You could see that he genuinely had something there. Just that middle stint was, it was an electric middle stint. And as you said, maybe needed to come in either a touch earlier or, a couple of little mistakes here and there. And yes, obviously, he said the biggest mistake was having to start 10th and having to use up a little bit to come through the field. That probably didn't help his cause because you've already burnt through quite a lot of tyres. So then, yes, you had to, I guess that was the strategy he had to commit to, starting, in the middle of the pack. The two-stop strategy was it. It was go hell for leather and do what you got to do. So he nearly did that. But like I said, I think, just a lap or two here or there and a couple of mistakes here or there would have made all the difference in that one. And a few drivers, I guess, looking forward to Monza. I guess some of the characteristics, as Kurt was just saying, long straights, big braking zones. It's a fast track. It's actually going to be a track that has to run the Bathurst gear ratio. That's normally that's a gear ratio that only comes around once a year, but this is a bit of an exception for the first time this year we run the Bathurst gear ratio. It's going to be at the self-proclaimed Temple of Speed.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good race, and the one thing I'm really looking forward to, and And it seems to have been I'd say it's a feature of international round, but to be fair, it wasn't a thing at Long Beach at all. But I'm expecting some similar stuff to Watkins. I'm hoping that we're going to get some fun with some slipstream. Although that said, I really don't want us to have Monza F1 Q3 level shenanigans come out of the pit lane for qualifying.
Oh no, I don't want to see that either. Well, there'll definitely be some things in place, I think, with a few rules and that to put that stuff into perspective, so we don't have those sorts of things. I guess yeah. So the important thing is that it's a 120 kilometer, 2 races, so 240 k's of racing, so better part of 2 minutes a lap. So work that out over 21 laps. So it's going to be a fair amount of racing for the night. The compulsory pit stop and the soft tyre to go into play there as well. So that will spice some things up. And I guess the compulsory pit stop piece sort of just means that, yes, okay, there's no trying to run around and, try and make it home on the smell of an oily rag or that sort of stuff. It is a proper sprint. You can put a bit of low fuel in, you can run fast, you can run pretty hard, you can then come in, put some new tyres on, put in a little bit of fuel, or, play around with that strategy a little bit. So, maybe run a touch heavier, or, put in a little bit less fuel, or whatever you want to do. But there is that compulsory pit stop. And that will mean that at some point between the end of lap 1 and about 2 laps from home, everybody will have had to have done their stop in each race. So that will it will put a little bit of an even playing field on there, but it'll also mean that there's no sort of driving around like there was tonight trying to save and make the tyres go to a point. There will be a guaranteed point where you have to stop, so you've taken the whole tyre saving equation out of play. So that will be an interesting thing to look forward to. Tell you what though, there's 2 people that were absolutely adamant last year that we should have gone to Monza, and we ended up going to Long Beach. One of them was Brendan Ross, so he has done 1 run this year so far in Supercars. I think we might just be about to get his second one. With a bit of
Actually,
luck.
it would be his third, because he did pop up for Hidden Valley as well.
Sorry, yeah. Well, if that's the case, then yeah, I will. Actually, I don't remember it for Hidden Valley.
Sorry, I
think he only.
I was looking at it, but he has done. Oh, sorry, he was Hidden Valley. Yeah, sorry, he didn't start. He didn't start the first race. He appeared in, I think, Phil Boak's car for the second race.
Yes, I think.
16th.
Yeah, so he did. So yeah, so we might be able to get his next run for the season. And I don't know if Brendan Ross might want to encourage Lewis Wedding to come for a run, but now that Monza's on the calendar, he was someone who was very vocal and wanted Monza, and it nearly got up once or twice in the 2 international rounds. But we will see what happens. You never know what the gods up there decide they want to do every now and again. But for that, we'll wait for 3 more weeks to find out the answer to that. It's time to win. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching tonight. We will see you in 3 weeks for Monza. Good night and drive safely. See you next time. Bye for now.